Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, and I am excited today to bring you a special guest. We have Evan Diaz from Nimble Co., who is our guest of honor who decided to come on and join us today to talk RPGs, to talk shop. So Evan, we kind of were introduced to Evan, and we were introduced to Nimble a little bit through a mutual fan, a mutual Patreon member. And Evan was nice enough to send us this incredibly lovely box set, which I imagine was not cheap to produce, and send it over to us. And yeah, we really liked the game. And so, we started having some conversations, and Evan is in the midst of doing his own game design. And so here we are. We're here to talk game design. Evan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Derek. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Oh, it's like my audio levels are looking a little weird. So Evan, why don't you talk us first through what was your impetus? We'll get into some of your actual questions here, but what was your impetus for creating Nimble? And like, what's your RPG background? And like, what have you been playing? And like, what led you to this, to this game?
So I did not intend on making an RPG. So my buddy years ago, he said, "Hey, I'm getting a group together to play D&D." It's like, I don't want to do that. I have zero interest in playing pretend. But he's a good friend, so as a favor to him, I was like, all right, I'll play once, just to humor him, and then I'll say, I know I did it that one time, and then we played, and then it was a lot of fun, and I just haven't really stopped since then.
Okay. So yeah. you weren't one of these like I've been playing RPGs since I was a fetus type people.
No, I'm relatively new to all of this. I'm not. I don't go back all the way to the '80s with sitting at the feet of all of the original guys. Like I know of those things, but no, I don't have any of those, any of that background, any of those preconceptions. That could be a bad thing or it could be a good thing.
Hey, Edward, thank you so much. We just had our first tip of the night for $100. Thank you, Edward.
Wow, Edward. All right.
Very generous from Edward. Edward said, life is returning to normal. Thanks for all you do. I really loved the Dungeon World 2 stream, and I'm super excited for tonight's conversation. Well, thank you, Edward. I'm glad things are getting back to normal for you as well. And I'm glad you enjoyed Dungeon World 2, and I'm excited to talk more Nimble tonight. Kind of opposite sides in some ways of the same coin, which is to say, games that are trying to do D&D things, but do them a little bit differently. Obviously, Dungeon World and Dungeon World 2 is more leaning towards the kind of indie narrative aspect of it, and Nimble is leaning a little bit more towards the tactical aspect of it, while keeping it fast and furious. So, from that perspective, were you frustrated with D&D? I mean, was this like literally born out of oh my God, this is so boring?
So so the first game I ever played of D&D was 5e, but we had, I think, 12 people,
okay,
including the DM.
Okay, that's problem number one, but all right.
So we made it like 2 paragraphs into the Lost Mine of Fendelver before like our 3-hour session was over. So we didn't make it very far, but like it was fun enough to where I was like, oh yeah, this could be cool. But shortly after that, our DM like moved away. And okay. It was like we either stop playing or like I have to volunteer to be the DM now. So I bit the bullet and volunteered. And it was hard to learn how to DM. Like you can't really learn how to do it by reading the books. You have to I had to watch a bunch of YouTube videos, and like it was almost a second job, like learning this. And so I prepared and I did it, and like I still wasn't like ready. Like there was so much going on. But pretty quickly I found out like, oh yeah, this is, there's some frustrations here that that I want to change. So like I immediately started homebrewing, and Nimble started off as just like a thing that I printed out at Kinko's, just for my players. And then it became the first Kickstarter.
Got it.
It's over there. You can't see it. It's off screen. And then like pretty much right away, people said, and it was just a 5e rules hack.
Right.
Just like a tiny little, little booklet of,
Right.
house rules, homebrew rules. I expected, I put it up on, I think Drive-Thru RPG or something. And I was like, I'll just put it up for free. And I was like, yeah, I'll share it with other people. Like nobody saw it. Nobody downloaded it. And it's like, all right, well, maybe I should put it up on Kickstarter. Maybe I'll break even if I'm lucky. But it did a lot better than I thought. And people like pretty much right away started saying like, hey, this is great, but why does it have to be attached to 5e? Like it should be its own thing.
Right.
So that's how I got to where I am. I was volunteered to do it.
Now,
basically.
Now I'm not as familiar with your 5e hack of Nimble. Obviously, we covered your Nimble, your version of Nimble, your kind of separate release. But in that hack version, had you eliminated? So again, apologies to people who may not know Nimble, but you should check it out. And there is an upcoming Kickstarter campaign, or I should say a backer kit campaign,
It's Kickstarter this time.
Okay, it's Kickstarter this time. Okay, so it's going to be on crowdsourced. But Evan is going to not only be releasing a new expansion with additional monsters and additional systems, but I think you're also doing a reprint or going back and reprinting the core set or the base rules. So if you missed it the first time, this is a chance to kind of follow up on it. But one of the things that really stood out, and quite frankly, made us kind of scratch our head as to what is the definition of 5e compatible. Your game doesn't have an attack roll. Now, this is all the rage now, right? Matt Colville's game, Draw Steel, it doesn't have an attack roll either, right? And even then, that's a bit of a misnomer because you do miss on a 1 on a D6, right? So you kind of miss a little bit. But was that part of your original 5e hack, or is that something that emerged in the second the standalone version?
Yeah, it was part of the original.
Okay.
And so people were just playing their regular 5e PCs, just using these rules, and like the math just sort of worked out to where it actually was balanced and it felt good. And so like how I like to think about it is like, people love the to hit roll, and I get it. But what if like if they love that, like what if we had like a to hit roll? It's like what if we had to roll a d20 to see if we could roll a d20 and then we could roll our damage? Like would that be better? I don't think that would be better. Right. It's like, well, what if we went the other direction? What if you just, we're not really eliminating, we're just combining it with the damage roll, right? So just, if you're playing a video game, like the computer can just do all these steps and it just sort of happens right away. But if this is a tactile physical thing you're doing at a table and like you are the computer, every little step, even if it just takes 5 seconds, like, added up over the course of like 100 attack rolls over, it's taken up a lot of time. So that's sort of the philosophy, like how can we streamline some of these things so that it is less of a video game and more of a tabletop game that plays smoothly.
So that, we talk a lot on this channel about, CPU and RAM, in terms of the player, like the brain, and how much this is. Now, and you're absolutely correct, right? Which is to say, just because a mechanic looks good on paper doesn't mean it's going to work at the table, because you have to actually do it. And we've seen a lot of people, we one of the games that we started with, we talk a lot about, we love, is like Pathfinder 2. It's a great game, but a lot of people who really love that game will only play it exclusively on a virtual tabletop. Where all the automation handles all of the dice rolls.
Yeah, it's a video game with books.
It's a lot to cover. But and this is where I think it's an interesting conversation is I have this, I don't think it's a philosophy, I think it's true, but there is this idea that with complexity, or I shouldn't say that the complexity is a natural evolution. It's an unbeatable cost to making your game more tactical, strategic, interesting, having more bits and boops to do. And there's usually an implication that if you make your game simpler, that you are reducing the amount of those character building options, you're eliminating the number of tactical decisions. Now, your game is sold as a fast tactical RPG. So, there's now that being said, right, we talk about a game's elegance. And this is one of the things that stood out to me about Nimble is we call it juice for squeeze ratio, right? How much juice do you get for squeeze? And yes, there are juicier games out there than Nimble, absolutely. But for the amount of work that you're doing to get that, that juice, it's a very, very good ratio. Yes, you might even say it's a Monster Yellow Rehab G helmet, but and that's what really impressed me with this, especially given your not super deep. I mean, you do have a designer background, but especially not given your huge repertoire of 5e or RPG experience, is yes, the game does, from read as having a lot of cool choices, interesting choices, fun choices, which is part of what makes a game tactical and part of what makes a game feel interactive. And so that's really, really, I think, really cool, because a lot of people say, well, I like that attack. You said, do you want to roll a D20 to roll a D20? And they're like, yeah, but what if I could get a bonus to that D20 that would let me roll another D20? That's another lever. That's another thing that I could maximize for. And some people really, really use those to make their game full of more bips and boops and bops,
Yeah. Yeah. My question would be like, is that the best way to add, like, it's like a knob, like if you've seen like a mixing board or something, like
Yep.
Like it's nice to have those design knobs to tweak to do cool things and optimize, but is that the best place to put it? Because if you put it there, that's using up some of your mental bandwidth, right?
Yep.
It's one thing, it's filling up space in your character sheet, it's it's taking up pages in the book. So the question is that the best place to put it? Maybe, but maybe not, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And like one thing I really like as well, I mean, it's kind of weird because so your game also still uses a D20 for skill checks. And there's a part of me that feels like is that a little inelegant, right? Like why still use a D20 for skill checks when you have all these D6s and you have all this, all these, I should say not all these D6s, but you're using this other kind of system. And then for the skill check, you're using this kind of different system. The one reason I bring it up is because what's nice about these smaller dice is, a lot of people love D100 systems as an example. And, for me, and they talk about they like the percentage differences. I think at a tabletop, there's a certain minimum threshold by which a chunk of improvement feels reasonable. And I think when you start talking about like +1 on a D6 or +1 on a D8, it feels real and manageable.
It's a bigger chunk, yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like there's a level of granularity below which I think players just kind of, it gets all lost in the sauce. So if you talk about someone giving +1 on a D100, yes, that is an improvement, but is it enough for you to substantially feel it and for it to make a difference? And there's always been this discussion about what is the smallest size dice that you could use. And, because obviously we're not going to be giving people half bonuses and plus 2/3, right? One is kind of our lowest limit. But like, can you, when you give a +1 on a D20, you're talking about a 5% chance of changing the number. Whereas on a D6, it's a 16%. So it's a much more substantial chunk of the number, the point where you can feel it. So, and so again, that's what I liked about the Nimble game is like the interaction with those dice and the choices that you're making felt really crunchy and felt really chunky, and like you were getting a lot of cool actions from that. So like crunchy in the right ways. Like if you're eating a burrito or like a taco, like you want like the shell to be crunchy, but you don't want like like the tomatoes and the meat. Like you don't want everything to be crunchy, right? You want the right parts to be crunchy and the right parts to be juicy and the right parts to you don't want just shell. Like you want all of the different elements sort of coming together. And if it's all like soft and mushy and like it's a microwaved chicken nugget, like so it can't just be like so soft where there's like no rules or no knobs to tweak, and it's just like, if you want to say you can fly, like, what does it feel like to you to cast fireball or whatever, like that's like you could just tell stories, without buying any books and playing games. You could just tell stories, right? So the game part is the rules and the structure. So you need a good balance of it. And I think it doesn't have to be, it's either crunchy or rules light. Like I think it can be like the right kinds of cool choices mixed with like the swiftness of just like chatting with your friends and telling a cool story. Like both of those things, I think you can take the best parts of that, and that's sort of the goal. Yeah. Well, because in your core rules, which are very, it's a small book. You basically have a skill system, which is very reminiscent of, I would say, a 5e type skill system, right? It's D20 plus modifier versus a scaling DCs, right? Mm-hmm. The real change of the game, I would say, is in the obviously the class structure, but the combat rules and sort of the magic rules to a certain extent. So I guess my question is then, so we're not rolling an attack roll. We don't have an armor class. We have to spend actions when it's not our turn to absorb damage, because damage is basically automatic. We have 4 stats instead of 6. So what does 5e compatible mean to you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I was actually surprised by a lot of the comments about that. And like I like hearing it now, like looking back, like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. So for a lot of people, like the 2024 rules isn't compatible with like 2014 rules. So like for me, like it's basically the same thing.
Right.
So like I get that different people have different, definitions of what that is. And in the upcoming campaign, not to like promote that or anything, but I've taken that feat. I don't want to do that. So I've taken that feedback and like I'm not saying that anymore because I don't want to misrepresent or oversell. I'd rather underpromise and then people say like, oh wow, I didn't realize it was like I know 5e. Like I immediately know how to play this game.
Right.
So for me, 5e is 5e compatible is like if I could take my bud who doesn't want to read the rule book, but he played 5e like 2 or 3 years ago, could he sit down and just play?
Got it.
Yeah, I think he could. If I say roll initiative, he's not going to look at me and say, well, what does that mean? If I say make a perception check, he's gonna know. If I say, all right, make an attack, and he grabs a d20, I'll say, no, just roll your dice. He'll say, oh, okay, cool. So it's that kind of thing.
So it's for you, it's more concepts than it is specific mechanics.
So like it's a little bit more than that.
Well, because by your definition, and again, I'm not trying to beat you up about it, but like by your definition, Pathfinder 2 is 5e compatible.
I don't think so because if I say the Pathfinder books.
Well, because if I say roll initiative, it's d20 and you roll initiative. If we go in turns, or if I say make an attack roll, you pick up a d20, you roll it. I say roll your damage. Yeah. You know what that is. You know, make a strength check. You know what that is.
It could be. I think that would be a bit more of a stretch. So it's more to it than that. So like I could take like Curse of Strahd off my shelf and run it in Nimble like on the fly without changing any of the monsters, without changing in the DCs, without changing like using the same magical items. Like it's more holistic than that. Like a level 16 hero or PC in D&D and a level 16 hero in Nimble, they can survive roughly the same amount of damage. They can deal roughly the same amount of damage. There's much more parity across all the different levels. And if you have like magical items, like I got a bunch of supplements with like cool magical items, and I've got like a dozen 5e adventures that I've never played, but I want to play. Like I can just run them in Nimble without changing anything, without having to rewrite it. Like I don't know that I could do that with the Pathfinder adventure or like a Morkborg thing or anything like that. Like I could convert it, but I would probably take me a couple of hours. But I could just open up Curse of Strahd or something and just run that Nimble instead. And in the past, like people like we've had like out of our party, like someone could have like there could be 2 D&D heroes and 2 Nimble heroes like in the same party running the same game, just playing together.
Really?
So,
okay.
Yeah. So it is much more than just the surface thing. It's like 4 stats instead of 6, like strength and constitution, like combined, like
well, a lot of people do that anyways. Yeah.
People do that. Like, so a lot of these, they look like bigger changes than they are. Mm-hmm. And the like no AC, like AC isn't exactly like the funnest part of D&D, right? It is sort of one of the more broken things that people have to work around, and it's not something like, ooh, yeah, I love AC in 5e. Like that's not what people do. Or people don't say like, oh, this monster's attacking me. I can't do anything about that because it's not my turn. I love that. So like
wait. You love that you can't do anything when you're being attacked?
No, what I'm saying, nobody says like that they love being at the mercy of the dice. So being able to choose to do something about it or not is kind of cool. And like, so
absolutely.
So my philosophy is sort of like, if it's not broke, like don't fix it. So like all of these things that to me, at least, were frustrations for 5e. Like, why should we just like play with this frustrating game? Like, why don't you just change it to make it better if you can? But the things that are kind of cool and really good, like everything about 5e isn't terrible. Like they're like we stand on the shoulders of giants, So like I think the skill system is pretty solid. There's like too many skills. There's like 20 skills or something in 5e, I think. So I think there's too many. Like there's too much granularity there with the skills on 5e, because like how often do you make like a history check or like some of these other like very niche ones? And you can't like change your skills at all. You don't really have much control over what skills. Like it only goes up automatically as your proficiency bonus goes up, I think. It's been a while since I played 5e also. So it's a cool idea. And the D20 has enough granularity without being like, I don't know if you ever played like, Diablo 2 or something, like, oh, this, you put another skill point in here, you get like 0.2 seconds more of duration. Like that's too granular.
Correct.
So I think 5% chunks is good, to where like if you put one skill point in a skill, like I'm noticeably better at this thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas if we do like a D6, like in order to like you can only put 3 skill points at a time, so I think that's a good that's one of the cool things about 5e, I think, where you have these skills that you're better at some and worse at others, and each hero sort of has their own thing that they're good at and things that they're bad at. So
would it be safe to say then that the main thing that you were frustrated with was the combat, right? I mean, because the fact that your game is called Nimble, right? I mean, is sort of a play on the idea of, making the combat more nimble, right? And making it smoother, faster, especially if you're playing with 12 frickin' people, which is brutal. I wouldn't play that with like Honey Heist,
we didn't know any better. We were just like people at church. They just said like, oh yeah, can this person join? Can this person come? Like, I guess. And then we had a dozen people.
Yeah. Okay. So where are you at now? So like, what is it that you want to do? And like, what is it that you're, running into and struggling with now in terms of your news process and new design? Because obviously you have more ideas.
Yeah. So I wanted to get your thoughts on, so like Edward is like, hey, Evan, you should, reach out to Derek. And I started watching some of your streams, and like you and I were talking about this earlier, but like I just see you as having like encyclopedic knowledge of like the things that I don't know much about. Mm-hmm. Like I know what makes a game fun, to me at least. I know like what I like.
Well, you're already ahead of the curve on me there, because I don't know what fun is.
But like I don't know, like, oh, this game has done this, and like there's all these like people say, oh, Nimble does this thing just like this other game, and like I've never even heard of that game or that mechanic. Like, cool. Right. So like I think you and I come to a lot of the same conclusions, but like from like opposite starting points.
Yeah.
So I wanted some of that, some of your expertise in like what does this look like? Like if we take a top-down design approach or story-first design approach or mechanics-first, like what are the pluses and minuses of these different things? I wanted to chat about like go over the creator's kit, like look at some of the design philosophy. Are there any areas where I'm blind to? So like for instance, I was watching your stream a few days ago about making 5e better and like the dungeon turns and like all of that, and like I never understood that before. Like why do people like dungeons? And like that's the least fun. But like I'm starting to understand like the cool things. Like it's been made so unfun in 5e,
yes,
in other games, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Sure.
And like I get it. So like some of those things, I want to make sure that like whatever blind spots I have, like at least I know that they're blind spots and they're not just like, I'm not just surprised, Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because we did that stream, and then like a week or something or 2 weeks later, Dottie from
Mystic Arts,
from Mystic Arts did a dungeon turn thing, and it did really, really well for him. And it's my tinfoil hat theory that I said that the top big creators watch my channel and then just make better videos. I think it's that we're all just kind of, we're all thinking about the same things and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But,
and that video helped also.
He's a great creator.
He's a really good communicator.
Yes. Very good.
Not just that, but like that kind of thing.
Yes.
So exactly. I've got a lot of stuff that I'm working on. We can chat about some of those things. I'd love to get your thoughts,
Yeah, absolutely.
Good or bad.
I'd consider this a kind of a working session. I'm happy to help you in whatever way I can. And, obviously people at home here get to kind of hang out with us and maybe have some thoughts or questions as well. FL4G says with a $10 super chat, more creator chats, please. This is so awesome. Thank you, FL4G. Cool. And we also got a tip from Tundalist. Tundalist is the publisher and designer of Trespasser, which is an indie RPG on itch.io. And we had him on to talk about his designs. And he says, thanks for coming on. He says, Evan, I have not read Nimble yet, but I am so impressed by the level of polish. How did you pull off such a high level of quality in product as a first-time designer? Do you have a background in visual design?
Yeah. So I went to school for animation. I've been drawing and doing art and design and stuff for many decades.
So you have a massive unfair advantage, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm a creative director at my real job. So I've been doing that kind of stuff. But as far as game design, just as a GM, like I've noticed like the things that like when my players, when they start stacking dice or looking at their phone, like, oh, okay, this isn't the fun part, you know?
Right.
So like, can we cut it? And like, I've come up with like really bad homebrew rules, and then like, all right, we're not going to do that again. And then I'll come like, we just sort of slowly iterate.
Yeah, I will say the book visually, it is a masterpiece. I mean, the layout is superb. The graphic look looks great. And then you pick some great artists. I absolutely love, what's his name? Is it Gerard?
Yeah, Justin Gerard. Yeah,
Justin Gerard. Oh my God,
yeah.
I love his stuff right now. It's so
real
good.
Nice guy.
Yeah. So
his wife too is a fantastic artist.
Yeah, they share a website. They share a website. Yeah, exactly. Very cool. So I know he did the Castles and Crusades, their new cover art, and it looks really cool. So I love his. Yeah, I really love his style. Anyways, so just great. I mean, it's a great book, but it also looks really good. The box set is really slick. The cards look good.
I'm kind of addicted to buying more art too. So I say I'm supporting the arts. You know, I'm supporting the artist. But,
no, it's great. You listen. You got to be careful. You'll end up going the Stephen Glicker route from Roll for Combat. He just can't help himself. You know, he's like, I want a full piece of commission art on every page of my book. You know, and he's making 200+ page books, so it just gets incredibly expensive. It's funny.
Oh, I know it. I know.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about like where do you have questions? Where do you about your creator's kit, or about where what do you want to rap about?
Yeah, maybe the creator's kit would be a good place to start. So that was something I wasn't intending on putting together, but like people were homebrewing. It's a free PDF. You just get on the website. It's not something I'm selling. But people who are homebrewing or making rules, I wanted them to have like some resource to like why I made certain decisions, like the philosophy behind it. I want to get your thoughts on that. Where could it improve? Like where do you disagree? Like on the philosophy, what things are missing? Maybe that would be a good place to start. Just to sort of set like the starting point, I guess. I
yeah, I mean, do you want to actually go through it?
Yeah, it's pretty short. I mean, we could skim it. You don't have to read the whole thing, but
no, I'm down. I just downloaded it.
Cool.
It is only 26 pages, so there we go.
Yeah. And it's a small one. It's not 26 A4 pages.
Let me see here. There we go. Perfect. I was ready in case we had a PDF up. So It's crazy. You're free. Okay, I'm just gonna say this for people at home paying attention. This is the free throwaway creator's kit that he just threw up on the page for free, and it already has like one of the best pieces of cover art that we've seen in a long time, because it's another Justin Gerard piece. Just an incredible piece. I love this mounted knight here. This is such a cool piece.
Yeah.
All right. So again, we have here basically an understanding to help you craft content and make you have stuff for Nimble here. There we go. Okay, so your first advice is avoid fiddliness. So we were just talking about the elegance and effectiveness of your design, right? Clunky, overly complex, or tedious mechanical overload that slows down play and distracts from core fun. Now, it's interesting. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but we had a discussion, including with Tundless, who is a designer working on his own game, and I had sort of an X-Y scatter plot, and on the X-axis you had the game's its depth, its complexity, how deep and interesting was the game. And on the Y-axis, you had the game's complexity and how like fiddly it was. And I made the supposition that it was always better to have a game be less fiddly. And there were people who defended fiddliness. They said that the act of having to do the work had value.
No.
So
so I get what they're saying.
Okay.
But like, you don't want Josh can't show up for the session today, but we know what he does all the time anyway in combat, so we'll just do it for him. Like, you don't want a character that can just like play itself, or something that is so smoothed off that like it doesn't have any cool character. It is fun to like hold the little math rocks in your hand and clack them and roll them. Like, that's fun. If we just said like, oh, rolling dice is fiddly. No, I like rolling dice. So like, if you overly broaden the definition of fiddly too much, then like, yeah, I get what you're saying. But fiddly by definition is something that like doesn't need to happen. Like it's overly complex. Like, complexity is fine, but being overly complex or doing something in like 3 steps that could take 2 or 1, like
right.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. So I think it's just disagreement on the definition.
Got it. Okay. Well, so for example, in Pathfinder 2, there is a classic example of where, and I don't know if 5e 2024 does this too now, but like you might have a weapon and it might have several magical enchantments on it, and make a d20 roll. You'd see if you hit. If you hit, you roll damage. But each of those elemental types adds additional dice of damage. So now you have to roll them. However, the creature could have resistances and vulnerabilities that scale differently to each of those different damage types. So you have to make sure you track which of those d6 of damage is fire, which of those d6 of damage is ice, which of those d6 of damage is whatever, sonic, because the creature might resist 3 from one and take double from another. Then the creature might have to make a saving throw, or 2 saving throws, or 3 saving throws, because the frost might freeze them, the fire might set them on fire, and the hammer might knock them down. Right.
Oh, it's stressing me out hearing about that.
So they have to make a fort save and a reflex save and a reflex save in order to avoid being knocked down, caught on fire, or frozen, or any combination therein of all. So you're literally taking, I always like to imagine if I was playing this game, not on a computer, but like on an NES, right? Like that's that moment where like you're playing a game and like the frame rate drops because like the game is struggling to process all of the individual actions. And you're right, because like in an MMO or a video game, you might be making hundreds of attacks a minute, and all that stuff is happening in the background. Now, the same thing is kind of true, and I noticed that you mentioned this here. Like, for example, a fireball spell is a great example of that. You're picking up a ton of D6, and you're rolling them all. And what's really funny about the fireball spell is that the more D6 you roll, the less interesting it becomes because of the central limit theorem. When you start rolling 10 D6, you are going to be shocked how often it is going to be very close to 35, right? Because like a single D6 has a lot of variance. 10 D6
might be 32, might be 37.
Right. So what are we're doing a lot of work to decide if we did yes, there is a snowball's chance in hell that you could do 10 damage or 60 damage. But, the vast majority of the time you're going to do 35. And so, I think there's an innate desire to add this level of complexity to the game, even if it means being very fiddly.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I think are really interesting, like thinking about or like, but not having to do. So like, for instance, in development, there's this one ability that just did like 20 damage or like multiples of 20. Like you do something and it does 20 or 40. And like, this just feels cool. But playing it, like people said, like, I miss rolling dice. Like just knowing you're just going to do this, like kind of sucked the fun. Like when you actually played it, it wasn't as fun as I thought it was. So there's those kinds of things like, oh yeah, we could have like lightning and fire and frost on this one sword, and you do this, like that sounds super cool. But having to sit there for 12 minutes to do this, like that thing that sounded cool, like because it only took a moment of time in your imagination, if it takes 12 minutes. And like I paid a babysitter to come out here and play, and you're like we're wasting my time. Like now it's not as cool.
So what I'm going to say now, I agree with you. At this point in my life, I agree with you. There were times in my life, and there might be times in the future where I don't, but I agree with you right now. But I am going to say something here that you may be missing, which is there is a certain percentage of people who play role-playing games who, we actually had a big discussion, right, about type 1 versus type 2 fun, right? Like, going on a roller coaster, or, a water slide is type 1 fun, right? Mm-hmm. Doing something grueling and challenging, like hiking a mountain or whatever, is type 2 fun. It's not exactly fun moment to moment, but when you're done and you can look back and say, look what I did.
Having done it.
Yeah, having done it. There is a non-zero number of people who play role-playing games for the ability to build their character in this way that is reflected mechanically in the game. And so
I'm one of those people.
And so for them, I think the actual act of playing the game is almost secondary.
Yeah.
Right? Does this character reflect all of the intricacies and choices and elements that I have made? And so the idea that an attack roll might take an extra 5 minutes to process because of all their extra little bits, if you start sort of smoothing that out and over averaging that, if you sort of start binning everything, right? There was 30 bins, and now there's 15 bins, and now there's 7 bins. They start to feel like they are losing resolution, right? They're losing the granularity that allows them to sort of build this explicit character. Now, as it's kind of a joke, but there is a website / application called Path Builder, and it's used to help people make Pathfinder characters, right?
Really? Okay.
And we joke that there are people who don't play Pathfinder, they play Path Builder, right? They don't actually want to play the game. They play the game so that they can build characters.
I see. Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
oh, it totally makes sense. That's how I played 5e, because I was always the GM, or I was always the DM playing.
Sure.
But like I completely get that, and like for me, like that is like half of the fun also. But like I have a lot of RPGs like up here that I don't play. Like I wanted to make something that people actually play. And if I don't appeal to that portion of the audience as much, I think that's okay.
Okay.
But like you can't make something that appeals to everybody. Like some movie that everybody loves, or some book that everybody loves. There's always going to be people who like sci-fi instead of fantasy or whatever.
Right.
But I think, like with that example, if we can make it instead of 12 minutes, can we make it 8?
Sure.
And you still maintain all of that coolness. Like let's do that. Like I don't want to smooth away all of the cool things. I want to maximize the coolness for the time spent. So that's the goal.
Right. So you really are focused again on that speed of play and resolution at the table and getting a lot of stuff and more stuff done.
I want the rules to get out of the way so that the players can go as fast or as slow as they want. Like I don't want the rules to be the roadblock. I want the rules to not enhance, to
fade out of sort of transparently be faded out. Not
facilitate.
Yeah,
I want the rules to facilitate the fun, not get in the way of the fun.
We did have a 13-month resub from our friend Agile Monk. Agile Monk says, hey there, Evan. It's your friend Agile Monk here. I'm so excited to see that you're here. Had to join via mobile to listen, as I am still working on the road, apparently. But says it's awesome that that Evan's on the channel. Actually, this was kind of Evan's idea. So actually, it was all Evan. So thank you, Agile Monk, for the resub. Yeah, so I think that's an important design goal, and that's something I think you should hold to, because I think there's a lot of people who get lost in the sauce because they end up wanting to have a game that is both fast and complex and fiddly. And there's a trade-off that has to be made there, right?
Yeah.
You can't have it all. You can't do it all, for sure. And you're right. I've also seen people who get like, there's a game, 13th Age, and it goes to level 10. And the way 13th Age works is your weapon die is to, if you have a big two-handed weapon, it's a D12. If you have a short sword or whatever, it's a D6 or D8. And you roll one weapon die per level of your character. So by the time you get to level 10, every one of your barbarians' attacks deals 10d12. Every one of your rogues' attacks deals 10d6. But the game says you shouldn't do that. What you should do is say, okay, if you're rolling, say, 10d6, why don't you just say this is 2d6 plus, 30, right? Hey, we just had 5 gifted subs from Agile Monk, so we're going to get a bunch of little shout-outs from Smog, who's going to be shouting out how strong everybody is. But the point is, the game basically says don't roll 10d6 or don't roll 10d12 every time you attack. But there are people who go, that sounds terrible to me. I want to roll the 10d12 every single time. And so for some people, weirdly, that fiddliness is sort of an element. What I do love, by the way, what you say here is this exception box. And by the way, I'm trying to read this for the first time while reading chat, while talking to Evan. But Fireball is an iconic spell that has been in D&D since the very beginning of the game. And there was always this inherent understanding that Fireball was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And so the idea that your character would be gathering up 10d6 and rolling them was a big deal. Now, to put this into comparison, that meant a Fireball could do somewhere between 10 to 60. Okay. Loth, Demon Queen of the Spiderweb Pits, okay, the goddess, had 66 hit points. All right, to put this into comparison. Okay. Many giants and ogres and stuff like that had 40, 50, 40, 45, 50 hit points. This meant that a fireball was quite literally like a nuclear missile. It was capable of eliminating many foes straight out. And so also, you only had a very limited number of spell slots. So the idea that this was a very rare occurrence that mattered a lot meant that was a really, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Now, could contrast this with a game like a more modern game where you might have dozens of fireball-like spells effects. You're doing this all the time, and the monsters have 200 hit points. So the fireball isn't even a big deal anymore. It's just
it's
an
part
attack.
of the rotation.
It's basically an attack. Yeah, it's basically an attack. And so I like that you call out here that iconic or very large spells, like those in the tier 8 or tier 9, that happen very rarely, like once per safe rest, can bend or break this rule of thumb. Cantrips or anything that would happen on the regular should be quick to resolve. And that is something I think is really, really good insight and really good design, which is the things that happen a lot should paradoxically be the things that we're rolling the least for. The big, huge things that could and should be swingy, I think makes that a lot more fun, for sure, in that respect. In fact, there's even like a part of me, I don't know if 13th Age 2nd Edition does this, but like instead of a spell like a fireball doing 20 d6, there's a part of me that loves the idea of a fireball doing d6 times 20, because that way it's not a bell curve, right? You have just as much of a chance of doing 20 as you do of doing 120.
So
right.
some of the spells are like D66. So you roll 2d6. The left one is the 10s. The right one is the 1s. So you're just as likely to roll 11 or 66. So that is way cooler because you have that swinginess. But also like if you have any ability that gives you advantage or like lets you skew it, like that has much bigger impact as well. Yeah. So like that kind of thing feels really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. So I think this is a really good piece of advice and something that I think a lot of RPGs have to sort of manage. And again, you're talking about here dividing and multiplying and numbers and all this other stuff here. This is all the stuff that people hate to see. There was a game, we were joking. We liked the game, but it was like it had you adding negative, or like it meant that you're supposed to subtract it from the DC, but it was a negative number. And it used the term subtract their value, and it was you're subtracting a negative number. So we were like, so technically you're adding a number, right? And we're just like, but you're not really. You're adding a negative number, but that's just really, really hard to do. And I also talk about and you're talking about a lot of stuff that I think a lot of people in the RPG space do not talk about, which is there is a point where you get to a certain level where we can all add 8 and 6. We can all add 7 and 3. We can all add 4 and 5. But when you start saying, okay, 17 plus 26, a lot of people start going, okay, wait, so 6.
Get out the phone.
17, 26, 17. I mean, again, my buddy Bob is like watching Derek add up fireball damage is like an amazing thing because he just looks at the pile and goes 38.
Yeah.
But he goes, when everybody else does it, they start grouping them into 10s.
Yep.
And then it takes longer to group them into 10s than it took to add them. And then the last time we were playing Pathfinder 2 or 5e D&D, my group, we would just round everything up to the nearest 10. So like if something did 32, we would just say 40 damage. If something was 21, we'd say 30 damage. If something was 29, we'd say 30 damage. So we didn't even care about that level of granularity and that level of resolution, So I agree with this as much as possible. Same thing with the DCs and all this other stuff. I know your game uses, I think, it uses 12, 15, 20, or like 10, 12, 15, 20 or something like that.
It's pretty standard, 5e DCs. It's like 8 to 20.
Yeah. And again, this is something that people don't want to talk about, but I think is really important. Like 4d6 is a lot easier to roll some and add than 4d12 or 40-20 because 7, 16, 19, and 14, 99% of people are going for their phones.
Yeah. And like it's not that people can't do that, but like after doing that 2 or 3 times, like your brain just gets tired and like you just feel sort of exhausted after doing all of this. And if it has to be that way, it has to be that way. But my thought is like, does it have to be that way to be fun? If not, let's make it more fun. I actually was critiquing the Dungeon World 2 designer
who was in our chat, because Dungeon World and PBTA games have this thing that used to call it +1 forward, which basically meant like you get +1 to your next dice roll. But one of the things I talk about is I really have grown to like hate tracking stuff on characters that is temporary. And again, you talk about here about tracking game states and computers, and it's easy for computers. And you mentioned prone, and I always said that prone was great because you could just tip their mini over and everybody gets it. You know, it's much harder to decide anything else, you know, about like, oh, they're, especially if it's what's the word I'm looking for? If it's not something that's easily representatable, like if someone's on fire, like, okay, we get it, you know, you're on fire. But if somebody just randomly has, oh, they get a -2 to their next attack roll, you know, why? Oh, they're disrupted. You're like, what does that even mean? Like, it's not, it's nothing that you can physically imagine. Those become extremely difficult to track. But again, there are people who go, well, then your game's going to be super simple and you know, it's going to be for babies if you don't have that level of depth and granularity to it.
Yeah. So Nimble has a lot of like sort of ad hoc conditions that like only the person who made it cares about. So like if like the cheat, like the rogue analog, if they care about the like this one condition and nobody else does. So if they do something, only they need to track it, and it's like their main one thing. You know, so there's a lot of those kinds of things. But like in 5e, if someone does something to a monster, and like now everybody else has to remember that for the rest, like for the next 2 rounds or until they save, or like it's not just one thing to track. It's like 6 people having to track it every single round, like over and over again.
How does the rogues thing work?
So the cheat has a thing where anytime they attack an enemy that's distracted, they can, if they hit them, they can change the die to whatever they want.
Got it.
So like they can cheat. Only they care if, you know, if an enemy is distracted or whatever. So like if another ally is next to that enemy, or if the enemy can't see them, like that. So there's different ways that. Yeah.
Do you feel like that limits some of the tactical, I would say, team play aspects of the game?
No, not at all. So like after like playing a couple of times, like the rogue will say like the cheat will see like their friend standing next to this guy, so they'll go run over there and attack that guy. Or so like after a while, the team sort of learns what other people do. So like I might not care if I'm not playing a cheat. I might not care if someone's distracted or not, but like I can set things up so that does happen. So if the team is playing smart, like they will do, you know, exponentially better, but you don't have to worry about all that stuff if you don't want to.
Right. And that's a great point. It's opt-in complexity, right? Rather than required complexity. Because for those of you who don't know, the way that Nimble works is you get 3 actions on your turn, which reset at the end of your turn. And because there's no attack roll or anything like that, there's no concept of armor class. Armor works as an absorbative thing when you take damage. You have to spend one of your actions to absorb that, to basically to activate your armor. So admittedly, it's a very gamist, what we would call a gamist trope, right? Because your armor...
To defend.
Yeah,
so it might be armor, it might be you dodging out of the way, so it doesn't hit you on the shoulder instead of the head.
But the important takeaway is that if you are wearing full plate armor and you don't have any actions left, it does nothing. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, they're stabbing you in the face. Like they're not trying to stab you in the middle, right?
Right. So again, it's a gamist. It's okay. We like gamist things here. But what I was going to say is, what I have found that I have gotten better, what I've gotten good traction out of, is where the use of, say, like a condition is reliant upon another player's remembering that they put the condition on rather than remembering everybody else's condition on. So I'll kind of put it in Nimble language. Let's say that the rogue had an ability to, like, you know, find weak, you know, they could open up a weak spot on a monster or an enemy. And now the rogue has a reaction that they can use where when one of your allies hits the monster, they can spend one of their allies to deal +10 damage. I don't know how well that's balanced. But the point is that the rogue is the one who has to remember it, not other players. And if the rogue can't be bothered to remember their own thing that they put on the monster, then that's on them. You know, but it's not like that's a lot different than saying, okay, guys, everybody remember you have a +10 bonus to damage on this monster. No, you have to make it something active, and you have to make it the rogue's responsibility. The person who put that on there, I think is way more interesting. Than like one of the things, like when we played 5e, my buddy was a cleric, And whenever he would cast Bless, he had this specific set of D4s that were white and sparkly, and he would hand the D4s out to every single player and say, I'm blessing you. Oh, here's your die. Here's your die. And having, instead of remembering that I'm blessed, having that white, sparkly, clearly not my dice in front of me, just all I had to remember was, when I'm rolling, roll with my D4, roll with this blessed D4. And I don't have to worry about what blessed does or anything like that. He'll take care of it. Like the cleric is almost kind of taking responsibility for their buff. I always thought that was a really, really great way to handle that additional level of complexity.
Yeah. Like in 5e, the bardic inspiration always have to harass other people. Remember to roll your thing, don't waste it. So yeah, that kind of stuff where you have to remember other people's stuff is like, it's kind of annoying.
All right. So your next advice is maintain the flow. Take their turns without interruption and waiting. I mean, Evan, you're saying a lot of stuff here that, we really like. So like one of the things, I have a rule, which is I don't want anybody else rolling dice on a player's turn but that player. So that's like one of my rules. And there's a lot of games, Pathfinder 2 is one of them, where technically when someone aids you, they have to make a D20 roll to see if they aid you successfully. And an aid is a reaction, right? When you make your attack, they aid you and with a reaction. And I despise it because I go, I don't want anybody focusing on anything but you. Not to mention I don't want anybody taking up any amount of time or turn. So I completely love this. Not having to wait on anybody else. The worst offender for breaking the flow is any mechanic that requires information from another player before proceeding, such as rolling to hit versus AC or saving throws. Right. Very common. It's very. Now, have you played any of the Year Zero engine games?
Is that like the D6 dice pool?
Yes.
Free League things?
Yeah, Free League stuff.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I haven't played it though.
So TLDR, you get a bunch of D6s and you roll them, and if you get A6, you succeeded. Right. The game does not have the concept of a DC. Right. It's like if you now the GM can award you bonus dice or take penalty dice out of your pool. If something is harder.
So the DC is like how many dice you're rolling. Right.
But fundamentally, everything has the same basic DC, which is, again, I when I played 5e, I hacked it in such a way that all the DCs were 10. Yeah. Like everything was DC 10. But the difference was that because of my Powered by the Apocalypse in background is if you didn't get to 15, you succeeded, but there was like a complication or there was a cost.
That's cool.
So instead of just having like, and I actually, ironically, D&D 2024 DMG advice kind of has this advice as an optional idea in it. And I actually want to do a video about it because I thought it was really cool that they actually started talking about that. But anyways, so yeah, just pick up and go and not go. And so let's take a look what you hear here. Entice, cantrip, will save. The target takes 1d6, so they have to make a will save. They take 1d6.
So, this was the old version.
This is the old version. Yeah. So they take d6 damage, move 2 spaces, and then they keep repeating this until they save. And as you say, note, this could require multiple saving throws, multiple damage rolls, all this other things. And it's a cantrip, so you could conceivably do this not only every round, but multiple times per round. And on the new one, it just does d4 damage, ignores armor, and if you didn't roll a 1, they move 2 spaces, and that's it. It's done.
Yeah.
Now you could argue that this less powerful, sort of.
Sort of. On average, it's
because people only see the ceiling, Evan. They go, but what about the situation where I hit somebody 27 times in a row and I pull them from across the battlefield? Right? They only see
it only has a certain range, so you can only pull them like up to 3 times. But like in the end, they both do essentially the same thing. And like as you level up, it gets stronger. So they essentially do the same thing in the end. But the first one was a really cool idea. But when you had to play it, it was very unfun.
Yep.
So we're keeping the idea and then making it actually physically resolve at the table more quickly.
Right. And again, I'm in that part of my game. It's like, is there anybody who really, is there anybody out there that really wants to take your turn and cast a spell again in a TTRPG where you're only getting together maybe for a few hours, maybe once a week, and your turn is you rolled and you did nothing, and the next person goes. It's like, I don't understand in a world where, like, I get it in a video game that could be very fun, because again, you're making thousands of these per hour. But in a real life role playing game, it's like
it's crushing.
It's crushing. It's brutal. And I've often said that I believe that, amongst many reasons, but I think part of the reason for sort of the car op min-max culture in RPGs is fundamentally because people don't want to fail because it sucks. Like, not only do they feel like it's disheartening, like, you don't want to do nothing, and maybe you even feel bad. You feel badly. You're like, oh, I let my team down. Yeah. Because I wasn't able to do the thing. I wasn't able to do anything.
Like, if my turn only comes around once every 15 or 20 minutes, like, I'm going to make sure I do like everything I can and I'm going to take more time because, like, it's my one turn I'm going to get,
Right.
So it's sort of like a vicious cycle. But like, if your turn comes around every minute or two, like, it could be fine. But physically resolving these things at a table, a TTRPG, it's never really going to have like a round that just takes a minute or two.
Right. It can, but those games, like, I played those games, and those games tend to be like legit old school type D&D games where it's theater of the mind. There's no grid. There's no minis.
It's a very different style. Yeah.
And it really feels more like you're playing craps with your character's life, right? You're just like rolling the dice and just hoping for the best, You're just rolling the dice, hoping for the best. And so it's kind of like, you missed, next. Like, that's literally your turn, like, it's really like, and by the way, if you get hit once, you're probably dead. Like, the stakes are huge, and it's way over the top. Hey, we had a tip from Aaron, our friend from Mad Dragon Dice. Aaron says, with a $25 tip, thank you, Aaron, says, awesome stream. Thank you, Evan, for doing this. Would love to see more streams like this in the future. Thank you, Aaron. Potentially our first official, might be our first official sponsor for our Origins convention that we're doing, since he's going to be there with the dice booth. Anyways, very, very cool. Thank you, Aaron. GM Scott says, I do love the no to hit simplicity when playing an RPG with an old school feel like Nimble. It's been great. So that's the question. Do you see yourself? Do you think that this leans your game towards a more old school sensibility?
I've got a lot of feedback from like people emailing me and sending me messages like, I've been playing D&D for 30 years, 40 years, like since the dawn of time. And they're like, I love this. Like people who describe themselves as grognards, like saying like this brings back the joy that I used to feel, like I don't dread, DMing anymore, or, that I've gotten a surprising number of those. Like, I didn't design this with that player in mind because like, I didn't have any experience with that kind of style or those kinds of players, Everybody that I know like is relatively new to RPGs in my play group. So it's a cool side effect, I think.
So this makes total sense to me, because my experience is that old school RPGs sacrifice the depth of the game for a more visceral, more feral, more fast, more furious, another F word, experience at the table, right? I think it's really more focused about, because if you look, and I've said this before, if you look at old school D&D from a modern lens, and you look at a fighter, and back in the day, like, growing up, people were like, oh my God, fighters are so cool. If you look at a fighter, they got nothing. They had no abilities.
They had a stick.
Your character class allowed you to equip all weapons and armor. Cool. That was it. You didn't get, there were no feats, there were no special abilities, there were no, Mutsu attacks, there was no Diablo 2 style whirlwind, no, that's it. But the thing is that it wasn't about building the character. It was about, what did you do at the game session, right? Like, what did you do at the, at the core of the game? And that's why I said there's this idea of, modern gaming where it's less about what you're doing at the table and more about like the character that you're building. And so I think that old school games like really respect the fact that like this allows them to have a more, fun experience at the table rather than, having a really super intricate, highly detailed character, which is to say that these characters are simple. That's actually what's cool about it, right? Is that there is meat on the bone, so to speak, about these characters.
Like you can make a simple character, but like if you like the more deep, complex character, you can. I think the word you use, visceral, is like, I think that is like a really good word. If you scroll up just a little bit, there's I think the last bullet point on the previous page.
Okay. About flow?
No, it was the last bullet point on the first page. It's at the very beginning.
Build mechanics where players can see the result.
Yeah, there.
Rather than find the result.
Yeah. So like if you roll the die and you're rolling a hit and it's like an 11. Like nobody knows what that means in a lot of RPGs. Like you have to add that to this thing, and then you have to tell the DM, and then they tell you. So like the moment that you did the thing, you took an action, and then time passes, and then you find out what that means. Like that deflates all of the fun. Yes. Right? It's like, letting the air out of a balloon slowly rather than like popping the balloon. Like one is surprising and one is annoying. So if you just roll the die and you roll the maximum number, you roll a 6 on a d6, like everybody knows that's a crit. Or you roll a 1, everybody knows that you miss, right? So like those mechanics that you roll the die and everybody just knows immediately what it means, I think that's where you get the visceral feeling of it.
So I'll tell you this, you'll appreciate this as a graphic designer. So the One Ring, which is a game from Free League based off of Lord of the Rings, uses a D12. Mm-hmm. And then you also have some D6s, but the D12 is like your version of the D20. And like in D&D, the 12 is like rolling a 20, right? It's a crit, you hit, right? Yeah. So because you crit, now you could play this with normal D12s, but because you crit, because you hit always on a 20, why put a 20 there at all? Why put a 12? They don't. They put the rune of Gandalf, because having a 12 there means nothing. Like the number doesn't matter because you hit. It's a crit. So why have a 20? So when you see the Gandalf rune, the game even says, stop adding. Like you don't need to do anything. You see the rune of Gandalf, you have done it. You have succeeded. You have gotten your magic. You've gotten your great success. Same thing with the 1. Instead, it's the Eye of Sauron. And again, they're completely just D12s, but because they sort of make this swap for the graphical response, it's because they want people to have that moment of being like, oh, there's the Eye of Sauron staring me in the face. But it also, I think what's really important is when you have a game that uses things like advantage, it really makes you feel like that. You see the doom that could have been yours. Yeah, I love that. And then instead you get to pick the dice that you know is a winner. Yeah. Right? That's a pretty cool factor. That is really cool that you mentioned that. For the Nimble dice, I have, so like this is the D4. I like the shape D4. The crit is like gold, and then the 1 is just blank. There you go. So similar idea. I think that kind of thing is cool. So like you see it, but like you make it as obvious as possible, so I can see it from across the table even. Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, that's actually exactly the same thing. We also had a tip from our friend Agile Monk. Agile Monk, thank you so much. A $25 tip from Agile Monk. Thank you, Agile Monk. Agile Monk says, thank you, Evan, for coming on Derek's channel and agreeing to do this event. Such a great stream. People are always nervous to come on here, Evan, because they're like, oh, Derek's gonna grill me and give me, just so everybody knows, I sent Derek an email. I was like, hey, I'd love to chat with you. Talk about design stuff, and then you're like, yeah, let's stream it too. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so your advice for designing classes is front load the fun. Agreed, but don't overwhelm. Does your game have multi-classing? It's an optional variant rule. Okay. But yes. So yes. Yes. I mean, to be clear, in D&D 2014, feats were an optional rule. So no, they weren't. Nope, they definitely were. No, I know. So there's multi-classing, but there is sort of like a disclaimer, like it will be broken. So like nothing was balanced with multi-classing in mind. I specifically, so initially it was like things were worded sort of with legalese, like, however many levels you have in this class, this things, but like we removed all of that. So like multi-classing is busted, and if you want to play a Gonzo game, you can. Yeah, and again, I should point this out, but I actually am anti multi-classing. And a lot of people were very upset about it, and a lot of people love it. And the reason they love it is because of the same reasons I like to say. They like the idea of being able to, they view RPGs like a big box of Legos, right? Yeah. And the more Legos they have, the better. But the problem is that in order to make an RPG class functional, you have to front load it. And if you front load the class, then multi-classing becomes problematic or unnecessarily burdensome and a pain in the ass. And every game that we've seen from Daggerheart, which did this, to obviously to D&D 5e and everything like that, it's a problem. You know, it's a problem.
So it's you can do it. It's gonna be busted. It's gonna be busted. So
right,
like a couple of friends of mine, they said like they did multi-classing and they were like level 3, but they were treating them as if they were level 7 or something. So like it was completely busted, but like they did that on purpose, and like that was part of the fun for that campaign. Like they knew it was gonna be busted.
From a design standpoint, maybe you've never considered this. Have you played any classless RPGs?
I've played I've played Mouse Ritter.
Okay.
I think that's classless, isn't it?
Yes, we'll say it's classless. Yes.
Kind of.
It's kind of
like you can like pick different equipment, and I've played the Avatar.
Legends. That is a playbook.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's technically classless. It's kind of weird.
I would say that's more classing because the way playbooks work in PBTA thing. Well, because I was wondering if you'd ever consider. I say Mouse Ritter is pretty damn classless. I agree, River Ray, but it doesn't even really have the concept of abilities. It's just y'all in your equipment.
You're just mice hanging out.
Just because I was wondering if you had any particular design aesthetic, or if this was just what you know, and do you like class-based design? And there's I
like each thing like having their own lane, and like that being clearly defined. Like I have a fantasy, I want to be a spellcaster and not a strong dude with a club, you know, or I want to be a strong dumb dude. I don't want to cast spells. I want to throw people across the battlefield. Like I want to have those cool fantasies that like can scratch that itch. And if you're just sort of like this, you know, you're just mixing everything, then like you have to be careful, because if you can combine anything with anything else, then like the playtesting becomes exponentially more difficult, and you can't have anything be that cool, and everything sort of just gets dumbed down to not break everything else.
Yes. Well, not only that, but what you just highlighted is that for me, if you're going to have classes, then why have multi-classing? Because doesn't that kind of defeat the point? Like, isn't the whole point of having a class to be like, this is my defined lane, this is my defined role?
Yeah.
But then, of course, there's always the people who go, okay, yeah, but I want to be the guy who casts spells and swings a sword.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the dilemma.
That like breaking the game is the fun part for some people. And I get that. So because I knew that was going to be a use case people would ask about, I said, hey, you can do it. It's going to be busted, and the GM has the right to veto anything, and congratulations if you break the game. You know, so that was sort of the take. It's not encouraged, but you know, I know people are going to do it that way, so why not provide the GM like a little bit of guidance on it? It's basically like 2 sentences, I think, is all of what it is.
So another thing I'm noticing, and again, there's a lot of elements here to mention before about this, what we'll call pseudo 5e capability. But the idea of, like you said, of being able to literally play these classes potentially alongside their 5e analogs in a 5e style adventure. Obviously, that means going to level 20. Now, a lot of modern games don't go to level 20 anymore. They go to level 10. For no other reason than a lot of data has shown that the vast majority of D&D campaigns never make it to level 10, let alone level 20. And so, you know, obviously your game still goes to level 20 or 18, 19, or whatever. So where, like, how do you feel about that? Like, if you were to make this game on its own, entirely separate, would you still go to 20, or do you think that is
I think I would. I would. The levels 10 to 20, if you look at any of the heroes, it's sort of like you can like pick more abilities. Like you're not doing, it's not like exponentially more complicated or exponentially more powerful. It's like all like the ability list that you chose from level 1 to 10 or 1 to 9. Like it's, you just pick more of those, or you can do those more often. But sort of like if you like buy a new car and you see the speedometer, like, oh, this can go up to 220 miles an hour. Like you're never going to drive it that fast, but it's cool just to imagine possibly doing that. So I think that kind of thing has a purpose in games and in game design. Even if you never play that far, like you could. You know, I remember playing World of Warcraft years ago when it first came out, and like I saw other people like level 60 was the highest level back in the day. And I like, man, this can be so cool to hit level 60. And then when I hit level 60, I remember distinctly feeling like disappointed. Like, I guess I'm done now. Like, what am I going to do? So like, I think having this thing that is like far out there that even if we never reach, it's cool to think about. Like, what if we did have a campaign that lasted 5 years? Like, wouldn't that be sweet?
So for you, it's more aspirational than anything.
It is. I think having that kind of aspirational thing is a big part of the fantasy and the fun. Like, if Gandalf said, like, yeah, I'm Gandalf the White now. This is as strong as I'll ever be.
Right.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Well, you know? The offside of that is, you know, we've done it. We've destroyed the One Ring. The third age of Middle Earth is completed, and we've saved the Middle Earth, and then, you know, Aragorn goes, but I'm only level 14. Like, I want to get to 20. Like, can I go kill elephants or something? Like, what?
Let's go grind some more in the woods.
Yeah, let's go grind. Is there another bad guy? Is there like a bigger bad guy? Can we keep going? Because I want to get to 20. You know, that's not fair. You ended the campaign too early. No, but I mean, I definitely, I think it comes down to the scope and the scale of what you want what you want your game to be, for sure. I also like that you talk here about, you know, hoarding and going Nova. And again, something that, you know, maybe we talked about is one of the ideas of the dungeon-based design was that the ability to just rest all the time didn't exist. Yeah. And because of the prevalence of things like random encounters, it meant that you never knew when you were going to potentially have your hardest encounter could be on the way home from the dungeon back to the town.
Yeah. And
so the idea that you would burn up all your resources and then go back to town was very, very, very foolish, to say the least. Yeah. And you're absolutely correct that in modern day game, and I think one of the big failings of 5e is pretending that that's the way that people play their game. And They don't. They just don't. I know that, I don't know what it is in 2024, but I know that in 2014 they talk about like 5 to 8 encounters or something is the standard adventuring day, and it's my understanding that most people play like 2, you know.
Like you just don't have time for that. But like I remember my players, like we would have one encounter, fireball, kill everything. All right, now we're gonna go to sleep, so keep my fireball back.
Right.
And I was like, guys, this is stupid. Don't do that. Like, so like, you know, players will optimize the fun out of the game. So like in Nimble, like I've taken that out of the power of the players. Like you can only rest safely in like certain locations that the GM says.
Right.
So that like it's an interesting choice.
Yep. No, it's I love your resting rules. They're very similar to rules that I have sort of hacked into D20 games over the last, 20, 30 years. I love the idea of sort of like, yes, I'm going to respect, in some ways they're similar to the variant rules from the DMG in 2014, right? The 1 day short rest and the 1 week long rest from 2014 5e. But like the idea that, yes, I'm still going to give you guys acknowledge that, like, if you find a place to have a nice camp, you're going to be able to spend your hit dice in a more favorable manner. But if you want to get all your abilities back, if you want to get all your stuff back, that is going to involve going back to a proper town with a nice inn and a hot bath and a good meal and really taking a nice rest, right? Just because you're traveling the road and you slept in a ditch does not mean you wake up the next morning with all of your powers and abilities back. And that
I might feel worse after sleeping in a ditch.
Absolutely, 100%. There was a game, I wanted to hack this one Forbidden Lands game, which is a free league game, by like having the longer that you spent out in the woods, basically, the more that you would accumulate this like despair, right? Yeah. And like if you had a nice camp, you could maybe avoid accumulating that sort of building fatigue. Whereas, but when you got back to like an actual nice rest, it would clear out. But again, I like resources and attrition because I play a lot of board games, so I tend to be, so I probably have more board games than I have RPGs. So
yeah, I love playing board games, but like I hate learning board games. Like there's just like you talk about despair, like there's just this sense of despair that comes over me anytime we break out the rule book. So like I won't play unless like my brother-in-law is there and like he's reading it and telling me how to play because like I just can't.
favorite moment is cracking open the new rule book to a board game and delving into the rules and getting a feel for like, oh, like what are the intricacies of these rules? How do the rules interact? What are the play pattern implications because of the mechanics that they have created? Yeah. What are the reward pathways that they are, encouraging? And I love me a good, read the fucking manual. I'm a big fan of that.
Like,
for sure.
Once I understand it, like, and then diving deeper, like, I'm all about that. But like the stress of like learning all the new stupid words this game has, and
yeah, terminology can be a nightmare. I will say one of the nice things, like we there's like some really great games that we really love on this channel, but like they have their own lingo, like instead of using advantage and disadvantage, they'll be like, you gain a thorn, and it's like, it's basically disadvantage, but like they call
I have to translate it in my head. Like, look at the top 2 cards of the deck and put one at the bottom and draw the other. Okay, you're scry 2.
Scry 2, right. Well, Mark Rosewater calls that resonance, right? Yep. Where you use words that mean things that people already know what they mean.
Yes.
Right, and relying on that. And sort of taking advantage. I mean, it's not 100% true, but I think a lot of people know D&D and a lot of people know Magic the Gathering. So, yeah, if you say... I mean, a great example of that is actually the opposite of that, where in Magic... for 30 years, they never had a name for the mechanic of putting cards from your library into your graveyard. Yeah. It was called milling because it was named after the millstone, which is the original artifact that did that. But then they eventually gave it the name, the mechanic, the name mill, because that's what everybody else called it. So
that's what they called it anyway, yeah.
Right. So we did have another big tip from our friend GM Scott, $100 tip from GM Scott. Says, Nimble does not scratch my complexity itch at all, but for what it's designed to do, it's really great. It's been a breath of fresh air. Sounds like, GM Scott, are you running Nimble? Thanks for the design, Evan. I can't wait for the upcoming Kickstarter come this Tuesday. And even though you did not want me to advertise it, it is the link, by the way, to the where you can sign up and get information about the upcoming Kickstarter is located on in the doobly-doo thing down below. So if you want to check out information for that, definitely do that. Yeah, Simon, PBTA is also very bad about that as well. Thank you, GM Scott. Appreciate you. I didn't know you were running. Nimble.
Yeah.
He's playing Nimble. Okay, he's playing Nimble.
There are more complex classes and more simple subclasses coming out also. So if you're looking for more of that, if you want to play a simple mage or a more complicated, other class, that's coming.
So here's we're getting into like the nitty gritty of like language, but like you have here, old version, key attribute increase. You may increase one of your key attributes, strength or dex, by +1. The final version, key stat increase, +1 dex, strength or dex. Now, clearly, obviously the one is shorter and better, but I guess the question is, why do so many role-playing games use the former rather than the latter?
I don't know. I think the writers are paid per word.
They are. They are definitely paid per word.
Books are big. Like I've had people say, like, I got this book in the mail and like I was a little bit disappointed because the book was so little. And then like once I started reading it, like I read the whole thing and like I appreciate the time that you saved me. Like why like Kevin says, why use a lot of words when few words do trick?
Right.
So I'm not paid per word.
Yeah. So let me. So I want to talk to people right here and say this. So, and I'm not knocking you for it. I think it's great. Right. There are a lot of people, and I know this. I know a lot of content creators, and I know a lot of people. There are a lot of people who have an idea for a game, and the idea for their game is 30 pages or 40 pages, and they are told by the powers that be, you got to make your game bigger and thicker so that you can make a more publishing book so you can actually kickstart it and get $100 for it. People won't pay $100 for, a 60-page book or a 40-page book or 50-page book. So Evan's 100% correct. And that's assuming that you're not being paid per word because you're, being hired by somebody, right? So what I would say is trust people more, that they're buying it for the experience that the game offers, not for the amount of words in it. And also realize that, brevity is the soul of wit, as Mark Twain said, right? I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long letter instead.
Yeah. That resonates in my head constantly.
And I think one of my, a lot of people are like, Derek, you should make something, so much about card games. And I said, one of the things I'm very worried about is that I do 4-hour live streams. You know what I mean? Like, I am not concise. That is not my forte. So, my tendency here is like, because like I'm thinking like, well, look, this says you may increase. What if there's somebody who doesn't want to increase their strength or dex? Yeah. This new version implies that I must increase strength or dex. What if I don't want to increase my strength or dex, right? There's all sorts of like niddly pick, just the most minor versions of things, of all things.
Yeah.
And of course, it doesn't help the fact that like, D&D, it's like we have stats, but we also have attributes which are different than the modifier, which is, you know what I mean? Like, it's like and they don't do anything anymore. Like stats used to do something, right? If you used to make a strength check, it was roll a D20 and you roll equal to or under your stat. So like it used to have a purpose for having an attribute.
Yeah.
And now there is no attribute. There's no point to it at all, but we still have it,
Yeah. Rolling under breaks my brain.
Really?
Yeah. Like big number good, right?
Big number good. Yes, it's true. We had a couple tips come in. We had from G Helmet says, just looking in the diddly doo down below, I found that my Canadian dollars will be even better here. I had to try it. Thank you, G. A lot of people have been talking about the rise in the value of the Canadian dollar against the American, and they've been using that to their advantage. Appreciate you there, G Helmet. And Agile Monk says, as you know, Derek, my Kickstarter is launching soon. We have support for Nimble as we love the game. Oh, very cool. Wow, look at that. You're getting some support.
Cool. Yeah. Send it to me, Agile Monk.
Do you have a term for this? Is it like powered by Nimble, or is it like a Nimble styled? Do you have a Creative Commons attribution or anything like that?
Yeah. There's a third party creators license.
Okay.
It's there's no SRD. It's just everything is included.
Oh, okay. Okay. But do you have a pithy name?
I think there's a creators badge. It's like, I don't know what it says. It's been like a year or two since I made it.
Agile Monk says that they will. They'll send it over to you. But yeah, like you got to come up with like come on, chat. Like what, like powered by the apocalypse, forged in the dark,
powered by the Nimpocalypse.
Yeah. So definitely check it out. All right. Just randomly throwing in a crazy good piece of Justin Gerard art. This is sort of your baseline numbers of what you expect people to be able to do. Oh my God, so many hit points. Oh my God.
So it's effective hit points. So that's, assuming, certain things, if they're defending, once per round or whatever.
Yeah, Jake says designed nimbly or nimbly designed.
Yeah, it's not bad. We'll workshop it.
What do you think about combat length? So you say 3 to 4 rounds of combat. Now, do you think that because your game is faster, that you could or should get away with more rounds of combat? Because I tend to feel that more rounds of combat means more decision points, more action points, more inflection points. Mm-hmm. But usually the price is, well, it takes us 20 minutes or 15 minutes to get through a round of combat. Who wants to sit there for an hour and a half playing combat? But if your combat rounds are getting through faster, does that mean you can afford to have a longer combat? Yeah,
you definitely have that creative freedom. So typically, like, all the heroes are there at once and all the monsters are there at once. And if they're going at it, it's going to be generally 3 to 4 rounds, unless it's like incredibly hard or incredibly easy. So if you want an encounter to last longer than that, then you would probably have, like, if you have all of those monsters on the field at a time, then it'll be too hard. So if you spread out the monsters, or if it's like a series of things, like you could certainly do that. Like monsters coming through a portal or whatever, you could certainly have like a longer encounter if you wanted to, but that's just the average.
So then you get into your monsters ethos, and I think this is especially important because you do have a monster book kind of in the works, right? And I should just go out and say that overall, I really liked your design towards monsters. It feels there's a lot of elements here that I think are inspired by, or at least feel inspired by 4th edition, which I think was one of the best games to ever do it, which is this idea that monsters should feel different. They should fight different. And that it should be as actionable for the GM to know, how they do that. And this is one of the big ones. Monster groups should all share an ability that monsters of their type have. It's a great way to sort of put like a, it's a kobold. All kobolds are tricky. It's a goblin. All goblins are sneaky, which is really, really great. Mm-hmm. I also like the idea of roles, again, making it as easy for the GM to run this as possible. Don't leave the GM wondering what to do. This is a classic problem in a lot of games. You look at this monster stat block and you go, I don't know what am I supposed to do with this thing? Is it supposed to charge forward and attack, or, should it be knocking people prone, or should it be doing damage? I'm not quite sure. So overall, I thought that your kind of idea on monsters design was pretty cool. So here's an example of a goblin boss. And this is from and also to the idea of that as a monster becomes more specialized and more important, it can become more complex, right? Like if it's just a basic monster that's going to die in one damage, one hit or two, what does it need all these abilities for? So here's a standard goblin boss. We've got its gear, it's all of its stats, its languages, its multiple actions, its bonus actions, its reactions. And I'm assuming this is the 5th edition stat block.
Yep.
Got it. And then here is what we would call the OSR version of the goblin boss, right? Which is, I think, the way that most old school games would be written, right? Where it's just like it lists its hit points, its armor class, its attack, its stats. That's it. Maybe one special ability. And again, there's a lot of old school people out there, Shadow Dark people, old school Essential people who say, I love it. It's simple and it's easy to run, and it absolutely is simple and easy to run. But I am 100% in agreement with you that this is probably too concise, and potentially too cryptic. So here is sort of your version of it. So number one, I cannot reiterate this: the importance of visual and graphic design in making a monster readable. I know it sounds stupid, but like having a little heart instead of having another word that says hit points or HP or whatever like that can go a long way. You have this big call out because this is something that's important, this meat shield ability. It's easy to miss. It's kind of what this guy does. Let's put it in this gray triangle diamond thing so that people don't miss it. And ultimately what this guy does is stab people and bring in additional goblin minions. So let's focus on making him interesting, but not overly complex. Give him his shtick, right? He's got that one thing that he does. He brings in minions. Oh, how convenient, because now he can use the minions as a meat shield, and then that saves him, and then he'll stab you and bring in another minion, and then he can use the minion as a meat shield and add, rinse, repeat. So it does this kind of very easy to follow, simple rotation. The abilities kind of trigger and power off of each other, while still feeling cool and interesting. Oh, when we fight the Goblin Taskmasters, those are the guys that bring in all the little guys and keep using them as human body shields. And that's it. That's the monster shtick. I think a lot of times GMs forget that, you're looking at the whole picture and players are only looking at, through this very narrow window of what's going on. So I think this, now it's a simple monster, but it's also not, the Lord God end of the universe end boss, because you do have some more complex designs in your bestiary book. So you've got a book coming out about monsters. So I'm curious to get your thoughts about monsters and monster design, because aside from the players and the changes to the combat rules, I would say the other thing that you changed the most of in 5e was the monsters.
Yeah. So I think I was on the right track, but a lot of the cool things about the monsters in Nimble were like the subtle complexities to them. So like there's not a lot going on there, but the Goblin Taskmaster, like it's really hard to kill. But if you can like push things around, then his other goblins can't interpose for him. So like this opens up value for like movement, attacks that can move him around. Or like, do you focus him down or do you focus his allies down first? Or like there's a lot of cool tactical things that are open up there. So in the upcoming monster book, there's going to be like tactics with the monster, like run him like this.
Yeah.
So if you want the encounter, like there's basically like 2 bullet points for each monster. Like this monster combos great with these other monsters in the same group. Use these tactics. If the common encounter is like way too hard, like you can do these things to make it easier tactically without like fudging the dice or anything.
Right. We call that soft fudging is what we call that on our channel. where you're not actually cheating, but you're like, the monster starts making suboptimal decisions, right? Or something like that.
Right. And I advocate for rolling in the open so that everybody knows like whatever happens. But also like, if I'm not a tactical genius, like tell me how to run this best, right? If you combo this monster with this other guy and you do this thing, this super subtle thing that you could have figured out on your own if you thought about it, like just go ahead and give that to the GM. If you want this to be like as like much harder, like you can do this, and it has all that capability just in this like really small, tight little thing. So I think all the monsters are going to have that kind of stuff. And I can send you some of the new draft monsters if you want to take a look at them.
Yeah, please, by all means, we could totally do that. Because I think one of the things that is really important, and I like this about your design, and I understand this, but like I feel like, and this is a personal thing, which is I feel like a lot of people design their role-playing games books as this sort of coffee table book experience for the GM. And I very much look at my role-playing books and stat blocks as like, I need this to be a practical field manual, right? This is something that I've got, it's got grease on it. I've got it open on the hood of the car, while I've got the engine open, right? I'm trying to hotwire this thing while the session is running, right? I don't have, and I'm not bemoaning books looking good, but ultimately I think these are tools. They're not pieces of art. They can look good, but I view them first and foremost as tools. So I think that the more information, that now GM Scott and I are on the same page, which is, I've always joked that if I ever publish something, and of course everyone's like, it's completely insane and no one would ever do this, is like, I would make a version of the book that is like nice and stitch bound and beautiful and, has all this like great, like designer's commentary and notes and all this one. And then make another version of the book, which is like spiral bound, with a paper that you can write on and easily annotate. Maybe it's even designed to be, POD or whatever. And it's the same content, but just designed to be thrown in a backpack. It's designed to be scribbled on. It's designed to get a coffee or a beer spilled on it and not have you feel terrible about it.
Yeah, so I just emailed you some of the latest ones. So for me, like I would rather have half as many sales, but a game that people play, rather than like twice as many and something like Avatar that just sits on my shelf. The Avatar burn.
It
sits on my shelf.
Evan, it sits on everybody's shelf. It's a well-established industry joke that Avatar is now it's the second most successful Kickstarter of all time, because I think Cosmere beat it. Okay. But the joke is that everyone bought it and no one plays it. That's the joke.
Yeah. I would rather people be like pleasantly surprised and actively play the thing, rather than like have the hype and then like, oh, like this isn't at all what I thought it would be. I don't want to play it. Like I've got enough books on my shelf. I want a game that I can play.
All right. So we're going to take a look at the Lizard Folk. So right off the rip, great art, just incredible. And I picked the Lizard Folk. So we can look at a couple. Evan sent me a Mimic, a Drow, a Giant, and I picked the Lizard Folk because the Lizard Folk is one of those things. Even if you go back to classic D&D, you had like Lizard Folk and Hobgoblins and Goblins and Kobolds and Orcs and Gnolls. And guess what? They were all the same. They were just all the same. They all literally did the same exact thing. GM Scott says, Avatar is very good when Derek ran it for me. Yes, you just had the advantage of somebody who is both A, obsessed with the IP, and B, also has run a shitload of Powered by the Apocalypse. So you did have that advantage. So we've got a front cover splash page for the Lizard Folk with what I will call fun little snippets of lore and all that sort of elements. And then we get a 2-page spread where we kind of get how to run Lizard Folk, if I could basically describe it that way. So we talk about ways to make Lizard Folk environments more challenging, like covering the battlefield with swamp. Very cool. I like adding, I think an underused element of tactical RPGs is the battlefield, and having that have it difficult, thing where it's difficult terrain for non-Lizard Folk. So that meaning that, there we go. Double movement while in muck instead of treating it as difficult terrain. Oh, so it's like Zerg creep. It's like they move faster on creep. And then we have a TPK alternative. Interesting. Do you have this for all your monsters?
For all the monsters where it makes sense.
Okay.
So like Drow, like they want to like ransom you or use you for their shifty plans. These guys, like they have something that makes sense.
Yeah. Feed you to the Hydra. Yeah, great. That's totally great.
So like that is like, to me, like a big thing in the GM guide is like release valves. So like I don't want to have to worry about balance too much, but like if I know, like if I'm just off just a little bit, like the fun's over forever.
Yep.
So rather, like I can make an encounter harder than I think the players can actually do, and maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. If they win or lose, like the game, we can still play, but like there's gonna be a twist in the game that happens.
Yeah. What do you think about games like Fabula Ultima or Daggerheart, where the players, when they reach 0 hit points, have the option to basically surrender, or basically they're not dead. Basically, is the option. Basically, the players decide if they die.
If it makes sense, yeah, sure. Like if you tell the lizard folks, we give up, whatever, and like, would they keep stabbing you, or would they just take you hostage? Yeah,
right.
That makes sense.
Right. I mean, the idea is that by choosing to surrender, you're basically telling the GM, I want something to happen that my character doesn't die, basically. I can see from your reaction, you're a little suspicious.
I think having death as a real risk is part of what makes it exciting. Like a roller coaster. Like if it was
right. I ride roller coasters because I expect to die. That's true. Not
that you expect to die, but it's exciting because like you feel like you could.
Right.
Even though like your brain, like you're strapped in and all this sort of stuff.
So does that mean that you are supporting illusionism? The idea that you want to make the players think they can die even though they can't?
No, I think the real risk of death, your character death, is makes the stakes sort of worthwhile. If I know, like if I'm playing Zelda Breath of the Wild with my kids right now, if I knew that like no matter what I did I would never die, like the game would lose a lot of the fun, the challenge.
Right. But when you do die, you just reload from your save and keep playing.
Yeah, but like you lose the last 10 minutes of play or whatever happens. Like there's some consequence. But if it was like, oh, I go to zero hearts and it means nothing, right, I can just keep fighting at 0 hearts. Then why would I? Well,
block? Okay,
why would I do this?
Okay, so to be fair, in these games like Fabula Ultima and Daggerheart, when you go to 0 hit points and choose to surrender, your character is not, they're out. Like they're not going to keep fighting.
Okay.
And there is always one of the challenges that people do struggle with, GMs, I mean, is the idea is that there is supposed to be a narrative consequence because of that choice, right? So to your point, like maybe you end up getting captured, or maybe the village that you were trying to defend is destroyed. The PCs live, right? But the village you were trying to save is destroyed. Your favorite inn is ransacked, right? There's meaningful consequences for your action, for your failure, but it doesn't end the campaign. It's not a TPK, let's end the game. So
I think that kind of thing is perfectly fine. There's rules for retreat. Like you should be able to retreat if it makes sense. But like whatever consequences follow, like you fail the quest, whatever happens, happens. I think that's fine. Yeah.
Right. Just because I know that there's a modern day aesthetic in a lot of 5e communities, right, of this idea of like basically the players never lose. People get very upset, when when characters die, or if the and in fact, actually, I should point out that in Daggerheart and in Fabula Ultima, when your character reaches 0 hit points, the other alternative is you can choose to die, in which case your character kind of basically goes out in a blaze of glory. Like you're given carte blanche to sort of do one last amazing, maybe even rules-breaking thing, right? Like I'll hold the army at the bridge for the next hour so that everybody in the town can evacuate, but then your character's dead with capital D. Like there's no raised dead or resurrection.
I think that's kind of cool. I'd have to think about it.
All right.
I would hate for my my optimizers just like, here's my 12 characters. Anytime it gets hard, I'll just go to the next one. I'll just blast this encounter and just.
Well, I mean, the reason why I always joke is that like death is never permanent in any game unless you literally are kicking the player out of your campaign. Be like, no, it's like the old Jack Chick track, right, where like the girl's character dies and the GM says, "Get out of here, Marcy. Your character's dead. You don't exist."
You're dead to me too.
You're dead to me too. Which would be a very hardcore RPG. Somebody let me know if you're playing that game. What's funny about that is actually, side note, I could run that kind of game because of my Patreon. You know, I've got like, you know, hundreds of players, and I could be like, look, you can play my game, but if you die in the campaign, you no longer are welcome in the campaign.
You're booted forever.
You're booted forever.
I unsubscribe you from the Patreon. There are some legacy board games, I'm sure you know, like something happens to you, like you tear up a card. So like it's this irrevocable thing. So like there is some cool stuff behind that.
What I know is that every board gamer ever never tore up a card in their life. They put it back in the box. That's what they did. No one actually tore it up ever. I
would tear it up.
I played Gloomhaven. None of my stuff ever got tore up. Okay, I put it back in a special container. I
put a couple of stickers on the cards and on the board when I was playing Gloomhaven.
Okay. Did I? Yes, I did put stickers on the card. I did put stickers on the card. Simon says I would never tear up that card. There you go. All right. Second thing, I love pre-made encounters. Just great, especially if they have like you said, a little bit of basic tactics, right? Again, this feels to me more like a GM. A lot of bestiaries end up feeling like a fucking zoology manual. It's like, no, this is supposed to be to help me run the game. So I really do like this.
And one note about organization. So like all the monster manuals I've seen, like they'll have all the giants together and all the dragons together, but you're never going to encounter a frost giant and a fire giant next to each other, right? So how I'm planning on having this one is like there's gonna be monster groups together or other monsters that you would generally find in the same location or could potentially be fighting together.
I see.
Like I want it to be
swamp
all
section. Yep. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So there's gonna be like hill and field. So like there'll be gnolls and hill giants and like billets, like that kind of thing that like you would expect to find these monsters here so that it's more useful. I can open up that spread in the book and I can run like 5 or 10 different encounters with those monsters on that spread without having to flip back and forth or transcribe them or, you know, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing idea. My idea, again, for the things that I've always done is like my experience is that like when a new game comes out, they release the monster manual and everybody is level 1 and no one's going to be level 20 for quite some time. And so I always think it's a shame that like the first monster manual, I think, should have mostly monsters that are, you know, maybe the first third of the game, you know, you could put a couple high level monsters in there. Like you said, it's almost aspirational. Like, oh, look at this cool level 20 monster. But how many level 20 monsters do you really need? Now, granted, you should come out with a second bestiary. You should come out with, I'm talking about like if you're a big player, like 5e, you know, that has to have, but then next year or later that year, you come out with Monster Manual 2 with the next ray of monsters. And that way, when the group is mid levels, you don't bring Monster Manual 1. You don't bring Monster Manual 3. You bring Monster Manual 2 because that's the one that has all the mid-level monsters. That being said, I like your organizational area a lot. In fact, AD&D 2nd Edition used to have these encounter charts that were based off of Geome, which were based off of Biome, I should say. And so the idea of putting all those monsters together is really, really neat. So does that mean that when I see these lizard folk companions, these monsters don't have separate stat blocks? It's just here, or is this like a separate monster, or is this like a crypt, like a, I don't know, like a, what is it called?
These are monsters that would only be found with lizard folk.
Got it. Okay. So the Hydra, this is the Hydra. Is that what you're saying? Like, okay. Like the Hydra.
I mean,
what I'm saying is this isn't like a snapshot of a larger monster's stat block.
No, that is the Hydra. Like you could just use it as a Hydra without the lizard folk, but the intent is like the lizard folk, you know, fight with these things. Okay.
Very cool. All right. I mean, that's a cool way to do it. And again, like I love the idea that with this page, you can build a bunch of lizard folk encounters. And I'm assuming then you could build all of these different things here. Yeah. Like the Voice of the Mire, which is a cool name. I like just, you know what? Again, we talk about the importance of brevity. I like that you gave these things names. I like that you called it the Marsh Blood Warbland, the Hatchguard Cycle, the Voice of the Mire, because it's the reason why Magic cards have names and they're not called Instant Number 22, right? It's like because we associate it with that different thing, and you're like, oh, I should run the Voice of the Mire encounter. I'm much more likely to remember that. I mean, Osili. Cool names are cool. I completely agree with you. So this is very cool. And also, as a side note, I'm actually really praising here. Reading this as a GM, Voice of the Mire, the Hydra is brought to bear, as well as the Great Scale and Shaman. Lizard folk become much more dangerous in the presence of their all-mother. and it's taking her out quickly that will be key to breaking their morale. But she will not be easily exposed, and there is always the monstrous Hydra to contend with. As a GM, this gets me excited to run this encounter. You know, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to run the Voice of the Mire encounter for my group. And especially from like a more old school, my approach of like, I don't run pre-written adventures that often. I make my own. This is the kind of stuff I love having in my back pocket and ready to go. Yeah. Inspiration. I do hate bestiaries. That is true. Okay. So let's take a look at lizard folk. So we know that they move double in muck and they're cold-blooded. If they are hit by any, remind me, do you have all the normal elemental energy types, or do you have a reduced list?
There's 6 spell schools. So like fire, ice, lightning.
Okay. If they are hit by any ice-based attacks, they are poisoned for 1 round. Saves against ice spells are made with disadvantage. And again, rather than repeat this 27 times, you just put all the lizard folk on one page and you put this at the top. So we have a level 1 creature, and guess what? It's invisible, and it sounds like, I'm assuming it's invisible once. Is that the way I would describe this?
Yep. Until it attacks.
Well, right. But then once it attacks, there's no mechanism for it to re-hide. Got it.
Right.
Now, what is your thought process? I'm putting on like I want my game to be like The Sims. Like somebody goes, I need to know what this creature's strength is.
Would the GM be asking that, or would a player?
Yeah, a GM.
I don't know.
The question is, how many times have you made a strength check for one of your monsters in 20 plus years of playing D&D?
Yeah,
that's the real question.
I wonder what they use to trim their toenails. Like,
right. But again, that's what I was saying. Like for some people, the monster manuals read more like a biology textbook, like a zoology textbook, right? Where you're like, I want to know what is its mating habits? Like what is its gestation cycle? Does it generate, when it has a clutch of eggs, is it 2d4 eggs or is it 3d6 eggs?
If it's cool and actionable and inspires me to do something as GM, cool. But if it's just in my way, if it's just something I have to slog through to get to the information that I want, you need to cut it. So like there's just a broad rule for monsters. If you're making any skill check or whatever for a monster, just roll a d20. If it happens to be a particularly fast or strong monster, roll with advantage.
Got it.
But that's it. You see the result. You don't need to have it in the stat block. You don't need to do anything else. It's just that is what it is.
By the way, Agile Monk would love to know what did you design your book in?
Layout is InDesign.
Oh, InDesign. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a beautiful book, but one of our patrons, Tundalus, who did Trespasser, it's a large book, in-depth book, and he laid out the whole book in Word.
No.
Yes, he did.
Oh man.
Now, because it would be fun, I just want to highlight something. This is AD&D 2nd edition. Just to kind of compare and contrast here. So if I look up lizard folk in AD&D 2nd edition, what I'm going to discover is that, and I was joking before, but now I'm not joking, is that did you know that lizard men have few natural enemies, that they prey upon both human and demi-human settlements, that their eggs are both bitter and inedible, as is the flesh. However, the eggs are very tough and have an armor class of 8 with 2 hit points. Lizard men produce no artifacts, or tradable goods. And did you also know that for every 10 lizard men present, there's a 35% chance that you will have a shaman who will have 3 hit dice and suffer some cleric abilities? Yeah. Now, again, I'm not.
Yeah, not dogging on it, but like if we didn't have the Model T, like we wouldn't have the cars that we have today. So like that's natural. Like we're standing on their shoulders. So, but I get what you're saying.
Told me that in confidence. Tundless, we talked about this on the stream. No, I think it's a testament to his
tenacity.
Yeah, his tenacity. To be clear, I'm terrible at all forms of layout. I think it's a shocking shockingly difficult skill to do well.
There are really good layout artists, Derek. If you ever do want to do something,
I bet. I mean, it looks really nice. All right, so you do have a couple of things here, which are like again about this lizard reed folk stalker. If you damage them, they become poisoned for 1 round. Attacks already poisoned heroes act after scale breakers. Attacks from invisible can't be denied, defended, or imposed. Now, this is clearly a rule for invisible, I'm assuming. So you're just putting this here as a reminder text?
Yeah, a reminder. So like a GM could say like, oh, you see their footprints in the mud or something like that. Like it's a flexible rule, but generally if you don't know a creature's there, then like how are you going to block its attack?
Got it. But what I'm saying is rather than relying on the GM knowing what the rules are for invisible, you decided to put the rules reminder text here in the text.
Yep, exactly.
Got it. And here is a lizard folk hunter, which has gotcha. They can restrain them with a net. Here is our shaman. If they take damage, they can choose another lizard folk to move and attack. They can... we got a tip from Tundalus. Tundalus says, how much, with a $10 tip, it says, how much do I have to tip you? How much do I have to tip you to stop telling the Tundalus wrote Trespasser in word story? Tundalus, apparently $10. I will certainly stop telling. Listen, it's a testament to your skill and tenacity, my friend. I say it with love and I say it with amazement. It's like
brave.
You know, it's like if you meet someone who hiked all 2,200 miles of the Appalachian Trail and they tell you they did it in flip-flops, you're like, what? Like you didn't wear proper hiking shoes? You use flip-flops? They're like, yeah, man, I didn't know I was going to be hiking the whole.
Yeah, it's hardcore.
Yeah, it's hardcore. Exactly. So they attack with D10s this round. Is this an action? Like, how am I supposed to interpret this?
Okay, so all of the lizard folk, they just roll d8. So basically all monster groups, in order to make it easy on the GM, they all use the same dice.
Yes, they do.
Generally speaking, with few exceptions. So that is quick. So if this lizard folk shaman, think of him like a bard or something, he doesn't attack himself, but when he sings the song and he inspires them, so instead of d8s, which have, some percentage of missing, you roll d10. So the average damage goes up and the chance for them to miss goes down. So they buff the entire group. So
here is a great example. I'm just noticing this now. I love that these monsters all use d8s because it's just that's the dice I'm going to need a bunch of, when I'm ready for this. And not only that, like there's some people who go, oh, you lose some of the granularity between it. And this is exactly my point. You do. But, it does constrain your design a little bit because now everything has to do D8 or 2D8 or whatever.
Yeah.
But the gain that you have as a GM to just go, I'm going to need D8s for this encounter or, maybe some D10s if I have the shaman. And the physical quality of that. Because I will tell you as a player, when the GM, maybe we fought Lizardfoot before and we know they do D8s. And this is our first time fighting the shaman. And the GM goes, the shaman sings his primal song of muck fury and all the D8s become D10s. And I'm start rolling D10s. That feels much more, it's like what you talked about, that immediate impact. It doesn't matter.
See what they're doing.
You could see the impact as opposed to some floating +1. Yeah. And again, what more do you want, What more do you want from a creature that is only going to live 3 rounds? From all those people out there with a lot, like that's how long your monsters are living, 3 rounds. And by the way, I'm one of these crazy people. I'm a believer. I like to use monsters 3 times. I have my rule of 3, right? Where you encounter it the first time, you have no idea what it does. And maybe the fight goes a little bit difficult or it's a little hard because you don't know what you're up against. So you fight it a second time with a better idea of what you're getting into. You're able to handle it. But then you fight it a third time because now you know exactly what the monster is doing. You have a plan. You know how to actuate, and you get to get that feeling of mastery. And then anything after the third time, I think, is unnecessary. But most people don't do that. Most people fight or play against the monsters maybe 1 or 2 times, and so you don't need 5 to 10 abilities on a monster. And also to say nothing of the fact that, like, look, if you need the lizard folk shaman to be able to like commune with the nature spirits, just have it do that. It doesn't need that in its stat block.
Yeah.
It doesn't need that in stat.
So for me, the individual monsters don't need to be complicated. It's how they interact with each other and on the battlefield is where the complexity comes out of. So like the first time you fight lizard folk, it might be just the reed stalkers. And the next time you might add in a hunter and a scale breaker. And the next time, like the encounter is different every time. Like it's familiar.
Yep.
But like you can't just use the same tactics as last time because, now they're doing something different. There's always something new to discover, or like not always, but like you can have many more encounters of just lizard folk and it's still interesting.
Yep. And for those of you who watched my 4E design stream 2 years ago, you'll note I talked about this exact play pattern where you introduce added layers of complexity and you kind of build upon elements the players are already sort of know about. Like by the time you fight the lizard men again, you know that the reed stalkers do poisoning. You know that they are going to be able to move at double speed on muck. You know that cold is going to be effective against them. So it's not a complete, you're not completely in over your head, but each encounter gets a little bit more complex because now you're adding in more monsters that have more things. But the other thing is you're not asking your players to learn all these abilities in one go. Like if I threw an encounter at the party and it was like a couple hunters and a scale breaker or two and a brood guard and a shaman, that's a lot for your players to process. And honestly, they're probably going to get lost in the sauce. It's cool to be able to sort of build them as sort of layers of complexity. And so the players are already fairly familiar with what a hunter and a scale breaker can do.
Yep. And
then when you add in the brood guard or when you add in the shaman, it's not overwhelming them. It's a completely, I think. Now, am I reading this right? If the shaman dies, they upgrade to D20s.
Yep.
Whew.
So like there's cool things. So there's a cool ability in the core rules assess, where you can uncover different things that the monsters do. So like you can say like this shaman, she doesn't seem to be protecting herself at all. Her allies are not a protector. Like she's walking right in, and you can add these things. And if the heroes, if they're not paying attention, just kill her. Like the one that's buffing the bad guys, like kill that one first. Like that is what everybody does. So you can reward people who are like putting the time and like either role playing or interacting with the game.
Yeah, this is cool.
But you can turn things on the head. Like this one wants to die and like be martyred, and then everybody else is like upset about it, right?
That's quite the upgrade.
to go back to what you're saying, like about complexity, like if there's too much complexity, the players will just like put their heads down and like we'll just kill them all. Like they won't bother to like try to understand what's going on or do the tactics. And it's also it's harder for the GM to run. Like if you have like 4 different monsters, each monster has 3 different abilities, and you're going to run them suboptimally, or it's just a lot to take on, right? So if you layer in the complexity, it's better for the heroes, it's more fun, but it's also like the poor neglected GM who has to like run all these guys, like they get a break too, and they can have fun as well.
Yeah, I would rather have 1 or 2 impactful big abilities than a handful of small niddly fiddly little abilities, and I think that makes a big difference. And again, in a perfect world, I would have a really complex monster with a lot of different abilities, but I'm just a guy, I don't have the ability to run this kind of complexity of encounters over and over again all night while also trying to, I don't do cool voices and think of the plot implications of what the players are doing. And maybe I'm managing clocks and I'm also trying to keep somebody off of their phone, it's a lot to handle.
The GM only has so much mental bandwidth, and if you can free them up from the like focusing on the complexity of the monsters, then you can do a lot of other cool stuff.
Yeah. So someone asked a question, and I think I have an answer for it. Simon asked, does Nimble prefer to have a grid, or is it focused on theater of the mind? It's my understanding that this is a miniatures-based game. You expect a grid. Things are described in number of squares. I see like reach 4, range 2, range 8.
Yeah. Yeah. So the specific numbers are given in case you do want to play on a grid, but a grid isn't assumed. Like you could play on a mat without a grid, and you can like use your pinky to thumb. You can move roughly that far. So there's different people like to play just with ranges, if you're close, medium, or far. So you can, it supports all of that, but the assumption is that most people will be playing on a grid. So the rules are there for that, but you don't have to, you can ignore that if you want.
And by that, he means a hex.
Hexes are better than squares, but.
Oh, all right. Wow. You just went up very large in my estimations. It's very good. And that's it. This is it. It's a you get one page with like cool art and a little bit of lore and little kind of like fun little intro. And then it's usable stuff. It's, very cut to the point stat blocks. It's pre-built encounters. It's advice for making interesting terrain for the battlefield. It's some special loot that might be tied to there, especially anti-venom because the creatures poison you. Some additional creatures that might add an additional level of spice to the encounter, so you're not literally just fighting endless lizard folk. And of course, it's going to be in a section of the book that is presumably going to be the swamp and marsh section, and so it's very easy to say, well, I want to add in an Odiug or whatever the non-SRD equivalent is of the Odiug or whatever, because it would be appropriate to have in this encounter, and it's right there in that section of the book. Very cool. I mean, this is very neat. Is there another monster stat block you want to take a look at? You sent me over a couple.
Yeah, whichever one looks interesting to you.
Well, let's take a look at the mimic. I'm curious to see what
mimics are fun.
What we did with the mimic. All right, so here we have another great 2-page spread. It's a great picture of the mimic. So here's a quick aside. I like that you shared the crazy fonts and arts for the splash page and leave the actual, page clean.
Yeah. It has to be functional.
It has to be functional. Like I don't mind that this, you got this crazy font for the mimics because it's a mimic. And, even like the italics, the black on the white, because this is just supposed to be that intro page. And then we get to the actual page and it's, it's functionable and it's usable. All right, big thing at top. Surprise. When fighting only mimics, heroes always go last and roll initiative with disadvantage. Love it. Surprise. And then we've got a bunch of different types of mimic, which is cool. We've got a book mimic, the treasure chest mimic, a clothing mimic, a door mimic, and the pit trap mimic. Running mimics, we have information about surprising. Chest mimics are classic. But don't forget to be versatile with their placement. Be creative. If you were a mimic, where would you hide? One of my good buddies, Smith, ran it it was like a labyrinth, and it was like a labyrinth of mimics. So you never knew what anything was that was you'd had to you'd turn the corner and there'd be I don't know, like a toilet or something, and you'd be like, is that a mimic? It was this one.
Yeah.
And the Final Fantasy IV. Had these, there's a dungeon where some of the doors are basically door mimics, and you have to fight them in order to get through them. Anyways, play into the paranoia, right? So, it's not just about the combat encounter, right? It's about the fun of
what they
experience.
do to the game.
Yeah, exactly. And again, as an aside, the reason why mimics exist in the game is because the original idea of D&D was, how do we make exploring a dungeon crazy, kooky, and fun, right? So that's why mimics are in D&D. It's to make people a little paranoid. It's to make people not just go, oh, a treasure chest, and the first time you go, gotcha, it's actually a creature and it attacks you, right? That's supposed to be like a big deal, right? A big element. So book mimic, read this, reach 3, on hit you get the 2 close, blinded until they escape. So okay, so this is something that this is something I love for Magic the Gathering. Okay. We call it ludonarrative consonance, but Magic the Gathering would call it like a Melvin Vorthos overlay, which is where the mechanics tell the story of what's happening without being explicit. So it's, if you read this, what is happening? Well, the mimic jumps on your face. It grabs onto your head. You're blinded. It moves with you. You can't block its attacks because it's on you. And if you take damage, it takes the other half because they're also hitting the mimic. But no, it doesn't tell you that. The mechanics tell you that. And I love when the mechanics tell the story of what's happening. That is just a Derek thing. It's one of my favorite parts of Magic the Gathering cards when cards do that.
Yep.
Instead of
that's one I play a lot of Magic too. Like that's one of my favorite. Like I get why this works and how it just like fits together so perfectly, and the lore matches the mechanics, like all of it. It's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. So I've used this story before, but there was a card in the original Theros set, and it was called Pinned to the Earth, and the art was the Bident of Thassa, a 2-timed fork, pinning a monster to the earth, and it was an enchantment that gave the creature -6/-0.
Yeah, that's cool.
But people complained because it didn't make it lose flying. And it really was worthless because it's like, who cares if it makes it lose flying? But they're like, but it's being pinned to the earth. The art shows the creature stick to the earth. So they made the card, when they went back to Theros, they made a exactly similar card, exactly similar, same cost, same thing, except it was called like grappled or like grabbed to the earth, and it was like a big tentacle from like a sea monster grabbing a creature and pulling it down into the ocean. And it's the exact same card, except it also said the creature loses flying. And like everyone was like, well done. Like,
that's cool.
It's like when mechanics can tell the story, that's a cool moment. So I'm right there with you. And I don't play much. Well, I don't play Magic much anymore, but I used to be like, I used to like travel, play professionally, and like, do all that stuff and play in tournaments.
Yeah.
I just draft every once in a while now, but I do love Magic. I consider it the greatest game ever designed. Okay, let's take a look at the treasure chest. A treasure chest, optional. Heroes make a will save. The lowest is tempted to open it. Okay, so let's talk about this ability. Now I see it's optional, but is the idea here that like people are going to go, oh, it's a mimic, I don't want to open it, and you want to get them to get it? Is that what the idea is? Okay.
Yep. So like if you know your table and you know your players would dig this kind of thing, here's a cool way to get them to interact. Like rather than like whoever speaks first, goes in, I open the chest. This is a cool way. Like everybody's sort of in on it, right? There's a cool way to get them to interact and sort of get what's happening. But like the heroes like are here, but like the players, like they all sort of see what's happening and they can enjoy it at a meta level. Right.
So I am a big fan, and it's one of the things that makes me very weird about to the standard RPG player. I like being separated from my character. Immersion is not a big deal for me. Derek loves the idea of my stupid PC going, oh, a treasure chest, and rushing forward and grabbing it. Like, I like that. I enjoy that loss of agency, or I enjoy that separation between player and player character. I know a lot of people don't, but to be clear, it is optional. So, it is that. The idea is that this thing comes out swinging, big +10 damage. And then it shoots out its pseudopods and starts, grabbing and ripping you in the standard mimic fashion. On a hit, it grapples you. And if it's grappled you, it can bite you, or if you're close to it. So basically it pulls you in, and then the big chest starts biting at you, So big tentacles shoot out and start ripping into you and pulling you in. But again, let's call it what it is. The gotcha part of a mimic is the initial surprise, right? It's the big, like, you're not expecting like this epic tactical encounter with the mimic doing parkour and, swinging around the battlefield. The whole idea is that it's really actually quite stupid when you think about it, but that's okay. Like, that's what we're here for,
Yeah. Their damage curve is a big spike at the beginning and then it goes down.
Right.
So each monster sort of has a different damage curve. Theirs is that.
I like this little flavor text here. The common chest mimic was historically very effective against adventurers, making it infamous. In time, however, its main prey learned to avoid it and has since now become endangered. That's like such a great meta commentary. Players being now very aware of what mimics do,
Yeah, this monster group is one that is sort of treated as like a biological thing, like a thing that people know about. Like if you look at the flavor text, it even has like the Latin name of it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I saw this.
So that's the take on this.
Mimicus inamanata. And then again, too, like you have here this really big, nasty, the whole dang hallway is a pit trap. It's the whole dang thing is a mimic. And there's a little note here, where it says like, bite as much as possible. Try to get multiple players in the pit. Try to do tons of damage. Use the pseudopod to grab hold lots of characters. Don't use bite if you can, So like just advice. How do you run this to make this fun? Like how do you get the most, juice out of this monster before they eventually, inevitably, most certainly, the players probably take them out. And also I like this little note here, right? Like the bite doesn't have any reach. They have to pull them into the pit first. And this one can't even miss. So even on a 1, it's still doing damage. It's interesting. What is the thought process behind some of these creatures that I thought I saw maybe another one that could be any level?
Yep.
So why that design for certain creatures, but not maybe every creature?
So for every creature, I think it's sort of like the idea of like, why not any class? Your hero could pick any ability. So there are certain abilities that any class could do, like can attack and defend and interpose and all that kind of stuff. But there are certain things that are special just for that. And if you try to have every creature scale too much, then it loses a little bit of the specialness, I think. But you can. So there in the Game Master's Guide, there is a chart that you can see how much damage a level 1 monster does. And if you want this to be a level 5 monster, just go down and it deals this much damage, it has this much hit points. So you could just do that. It's not hard, but for something like this, like if I want to run a pit trap mimic, I like maybe my heroes are level 3 and I want to run this. Like there's a great spot, but maybe they're level 7. Like I don't want to have like 20 different pit trap mimics. Like you can just have this and you stick it in there once. You're not gonna. It's not like an adult dragon. Like when that is gonna be. This is something that could legitimately happen more or less anytime.
Got it. And also too, another thing that I will add about having a more concise, shortened form of like the treasure chest mimic is if you did want to scale this creature up in level, much easier to do because you're not having to deal with a massive stat block with a lot of baked in math and stuff like that. You could easily see that by giving this creature more hit points and increasing the damage done or giving it a static damage bonus, you've basically essentially made it a higher level monster, right?
Yep. There's basically 2 numbers to change. It's very resilient to tinkering. I want you to check out the door mimic. I think that one's my favorite.
Okay, but I do want to note something, which I think is a complete win for you from a graphic design standpoint. GM Scott says, am I interpreting these symbols correctly? The dove is the soft fudge recommendation, and the skull is if you want to go hard.
That's right.
Nasty. Yeah.
That's right.
So that's the fact that he didn't need the rule. He just figured that out. It's really good. All right, door mimic. So here we go. Now what is this number here in the arrow?
That is a movement speed. So
that's movement. Okay. Got it. The door doesn't move. Okay. The other one.
And I'm still playing with some of the icons and layout stuff. So like each of the monster PDFs that I just sent you, like they're all slightly different as I'm tweaking.
For some odd reason, my gut instinct is this should either be like a boot, or like maybe like a person moving kind of icon. But
yeah, I think I'm gonna change it to a boot, and then like if it has flying, it'll be a wing. If it has digging, it'll be like something else. So
yeah. I like that. Okay. Door mimic. Or it could even be a boot with wings. But anyways, door mimic. Level 10 large, escape DC 15. Totally a real door. It has heavy armor and can't attack on one side. Opens as a door normally, and after some of the heroes a party pass through, slams shut, splitting the party, attacking the heroes on the unarmored side. Ambusher. Deal plus 20 damage. This is a hard monster here. On your first attack. Pseudopod, reach 8, D12, or bite, which you can only use against a grappled or a creature that's next to the door. Pulls them towards you, then deals 2d12 plus 20 damage. Unlock. DC 15 finesse check, rolling with disadvantage, or audibly unlocks when bloodied. So I love the idea of this thing happening mid-fight, and you're going to get 2 very different experiences for being on one side of the door versus the other side of the door. And heavy armor is like a nimble thing, right? In terms of like what it can use to absorb damage. Yep.
So basically, if you normally roll like a D10 plus 5, you just ignore the plus 5, and whatever you roll on the D10, it's cut in half.
Got it. So, okay. I like this monster. Are you worried that the fight will be very uninteresting for people on the armored side? Because they're not in any danger, right?
They're not. they're not necessarily. There might be monsters on the other side of the door.
Okay,
So there's a lot
okay.
of things you can do, but I think it's sometimes cool to let people just go full damage. Like if you know you have a couple of guys,
it's a DPS test or whatever that DPS check.
Yeah, or like there's this one guy like who just loves picking locks. Like you give them the opportunity to do that cool heroic thing and have that moment in battle. Or if they don't even think of attacking the door and they only think of trying to unlock it, but they're both bad at unlocking it. Like it could be hilarious watching them try to unlock this door while their friends on the other side are dying. Right. So like there's a lot of cool moments that it could create.
Right. So what I love about this, the thing that I like the most about it is that. There you go, GM. It's got a double door that opens like this. So you got is a monster like this. There can often be a question of like, well, okay, why don't we just leave it? If it's a mimic, we walk away from it, right? This forces you to engage with it, which is interesting, right? Because the people on the unarmored side where it can't attack them, you're right, they could just walk away, but then they're leaving their ally, they're leaving the rest of the other half of their party to death, Now, see, GM Scott is being really good. There you go. A lobby of death, right? Where you walk in and it closes on both.
Pair of door mimics with attack subjects.
Yeah. Well, you split it. You split the party into 3, right? And the people that are in the middle, they've got it worse. They've got both of the unarmored sides attacking them and ripping them apart.
Put the players you like on the safe side. Like there's all sorts of things you do. But a big goal is to like show GMs like all the different things you can do with monsters. Like some of these mimics are not like regular monsters. Each one of these is sort of like an event. Yeah. No,
I think these are fun.
Yeah.
And again, they do it in a very concise way. I mean, this whole thing is one page. And also too, I think these things are fun and play differently from each other, which I think is really, really cool.
Yep.
This is really neat. I don't know. I think I'm digging it. Now, how many of these are you expecting to, when you're trying to put together for your Kickstarter?
There's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 200 plus monsters, depending on how well it goes. But like each page can hold like 5 or 8 monsters.
Right. So. Some stretch goals, basically, is what you're saying.
So I'm not sure exactly how many there's going to be, but I have a list of ones that I'd like to put in.
Yeah, so that's a big number. That's cool. I mean, that's really good to see. Now, I know that the book is also listed as an expansion. So I know that one of the things that we talked about in our exchange was, your idea or your thought process around, like maybe exploration, travel, other rules. Because right now, Nimble is really focused on, on the sort of the monsters, the combat, the classes, right? Like the play pattern outside of combat isn't as different, isn't as changed.
Sort of. So, a lot of the fun, like dwindling of resources and managing what you have and using that wisely, a lot of that is already built into the game at large through the restriction of when you can safe rest.
Yep.
And recover those things.
Yeah.
So I've always thought of the adventure, like a pre-written adventure, like that is where the exploration things happen. So it's not that Nimble is only focused on combat, but like the monsters for combat, and then like the adventure, like I've got this one here. This is one of the published adventures. Let me see. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but like before you get to like the dungeon area, there are like all of these different traveling encounters that you could do. Right. So like on the way to the thing, here's like the exploration stuff. So it's just in my mind up until now, it's the adventuring exploration, like that stuff is just in a different part of the game.
Yeah.
It's not in the rule book. It's not in the monster manual. It's in the adventures.
Got it.
But that said, I now see the perspective and the fun in having these mechanics where if you did have, and I don't know if it'd be good to have in every dungeon, but it would be cool to have like some dungeons where you have that clock, for every room you go to, time passes and this kind of stuff happens. So I would like to have those tools for a GM to run, but it would have to be like not fiddly, not a lot of bookkeeping.
Right.
You have to make sense in the context of the game. So
yeah. So because one of the big challenges that I think a lot of modern D&D type adventurers have is that you traditionally have a very strong, usually pressing urgent goal when you go to a dungeon, right? Or when you go to an adventure, right? Where there's usually some element of you have to do this thing, and that's the thing that you're trying to do. And usually there's some sort of pressure to do it. Time is ticking, that the people of the town need the cure before, the plague takes them or whatever. And that can be sort of counterproductive to exploration, because the idea of exploration is you have time to look around. You're exploring the space for its own sake. And so sometimes what can happen is that players have this idea of like, look, we need to go do this thing, and the clock is ticking, and these exploration rules end up feeling more like a punishment because all they're doing is just making it more difficult and more of a pain in the ass to do the things that we want them to do. And sometimes too, then what ends up happening a lot of times too, GMs will end up hand waving that stuff around because they go, well, if I followed these rules, it would ruin the adventure. There was a classic example when I ran the first adventure for Pathfinder 2nd Edition for my group back in 2019. There's a point where you reach in the adventure where the villain sends one of her minions to the town to trigger the explosion that's going to blow up the town. And the idea of the adventure is that, the players defeat her, and she kind of does like a last, like, haha, you're too late. I already dispatched my homunculus. It's going to reach town by tomorrow morning, and it will, blow up the town. Well, my group reached the point where the homunculus was left, but they weren't really aware of that happened, and they went, okay, we're going to go back and rest and recover in the nearby woods. And I went, okay. And then I was like, during the night, you hear a loud explosion in a soft rumble in the distance. And when they get there, then I go, oh yeah, the town blew up in the morning. And they went, oh shit. Well, okay. We weren't even aware that was a thing that was going to happen. So sometimes you put these time pressures on people, and then you can get yourself into trouble because the GM thinks like, well, the players have to be able to defeat the villain before she blows up the town. And so now they've run out of resources. The players really, there's a tension between what the players want to do and what the players need to do. The players need to rest, but they want to push on. And now my game engine is being sort of stressed beyond its capacity. So it can be a real big problem, and it can it's a very difficult problem to solve. Now the alternative is in an old school D&D, there usually wasn't, you were going to the dungeon because it had treasure, it had, monsters and stuff that you wanted. And if people use that methodology too much in modern day designs, people go, well, where's the pressure? Where's the tension? Where's the ticking clock? Where's
No. You want to get in. There's a carrot at the end of the dungeon, or there's a carrot in every room.
Right. It's a carrot-based model instead of a stick-based model. And I think a lot of people tend to, so it's very gamist, but like one of the things that I have done in the past, I've run campaigns, mega dungeon campaigns, right? Where basically the entire campaign takes place in a dungeon, a gigantic dungeon, right? 20, 30 levels, right? Hundreds of rooms. I will literally give the players more experience points the longer they go between, say, safe rests in Nimble, right? Yeah. And so it's literally a push your luck type, mechanic.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah.
Like the group is like, hey, I'm completely out of hit dice. I've used up all of my recover on a safe rest abilities. But guys, we're in the platinum bonus tier.
Yeah, we can't just go one more room.
Let's just go one more room.
We can retire.
Yeah, right. And I find that to be very fun, but it is not very. It doesn't really jive as much with like sort of the more plot or story driven focus of where a lot of modern day design and player groups are. Oh yeah, Bean Boy. The escalating victories thing of it's one of the reasons I love Draw Steel is because of that. Exactly.
That is a very cool mechanic. I think it would be cool to have that as a framework for GMs to use if they want. Maybe, this dungeon they use it, but other dungeons is more plot based and, there's different things happen. So I think that's a cool tool to have.
I would tell you this. I think you would be best served if you could figure out a way to make it modular. because I think that's going to be, not only is that going to be better served at a wider audience, but I think it's also going to be better served because even within an existing campaign, there are still going to be GMs who are going to occasionally want to run, as you say, a more plot-based adventure. And sometimes, and the question really is just, and I would encourage GMs who are running a plot-based adventure, typically almost 99% of the time when a plot-based adventure, the enemy is time. And I would encourage you to then have a system, whether it's a stick or a carrot, right? That the actions or the inactions of the players matter, right? And if you could create a system where, and you have to be willing to say, look, if you take too many rests or if you take too many safe rests, there will be consequences, to the game, or say something like, you only get, 3 safe rests, before this bad thing happens. Right. And, Blades in the Dark and games like it use this idea of clocks, which is nothing revolutionary, but the power of taking a 3x5 index card and drawing a circle on it and quartering it and then writing on it, the town is destroyed, and then filling in one of those 20, pie segments and putting it on the table in front of the group and saying, hey guys, every time you take a safe rest, I'm going to fill in another segment of this pie chart. Even if as a GM, maybe even the players know, 3, that gives us more than enough safe rests to be able to completely destroy this adventure. But knowing that there's some kind of, blade hanging over your head, I think does do a good job of psychologically enforcing this idea of like, hey, we have to play better. Hey, we got to get more done. We got to be a little bit more, cognizant of how we're spending our resources and the like. So, I think that's I think the most important thing.
If they know they're pushing their luck and they know the deeper they go, the longer they stay, the better it is for them, then that's cool. That framework is the reward.
Yes, exactly.
But if they know they can just long rest anytime, then a wandering monster is
pointless.
It's annoying. It's worse than pointless. It's annoying.
It's annoying.
Like it's slowing. It's preventing us from continuing the story. It's getting in our way. It's not something we look forward to.
Correct.
So,
it is literally designed. And to be clear, in original D&D, wandering monsters were a punishment. Because remember, in original D&D, you got very little experience points from fighting monsters. You got almost all of your experience points from treasure. And random wandering monsters, the same way that you don't walk around with your bank account in your wallet, monsters didn't walk around with all their treasure on them. And so when you did have a random encounter, monsters typically dropped very little treasure. The monsters were still just as deadly or dangerous. But so it was really very much a punishment. But I would say that it's even worse modern day because now, not only is it not a punishment, it's annoying because it's not really going to kill you. It's not really going to threaten you. Like, it's not actually going to like wipe your party. Like, it's just, it's a time waster.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. And so in the older version, it seems like it was a punishment that made sense in the context of the game, like going to jail in Monopoly or landing on one of those bad things.
Well, right. The idea was it encouraged a player pattern where you would try to avoid that, right? You would try to be mindful with your time and not waste a lot of time and try to minimize your chances for bad stuff happening. So that was definitely the idea. We had a super chat from Lokdon with a question. Do we know how many boxed sets will be available? I really want to get my hands on it. I already got the PDFs. Loving Nimble so far. So I imagine Lockdown's asking about the reprint.
So the cool thing about crowdfunders is that I know how many to order. So however many are ordered, I'll get that many plus a certain amount. So if you back it in the upcoming Kickstarter, then you'll get one. There
you go. That is definitely the advantage.
Otherwise I'm guessing.
Right. And you don't want to have to necessarily eat that and have, 500 Nimble unsold units on your shelf. I understand, right? You are sold out, right?
Yep. So like last time, like the product that I ordered, it was shipped to the US orders were shipped to my house. It filled the entire garage and then some. And then that sold out like way quicker than I thought. And then so like printing that many books can easily be in the 6 figures.
Yeah.
So like if you guess wrong, like you just have a garage full of things
of
forever.
unsold products. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember, I do a lot of work and I help the folks from Roll for Combat, and they do a couple Kickstarters a year and stuff like that. And I never really understood the size of scope of it until we were in Portland on our way out to Seattle to go to PAX West, PAX Prime, and we stopped in Portland because that's where their primary resources warehouse is.
Warehouse, yeah.
And I saw like their part of the warehouse, and just saw the pallets and pallets of books. And it's just like, like one of those pallets of books is like, probably equivalent to my collection. And it's like, there's, dozens and more of that. And it's like, man, that's such a crazy thing to see, but it's got to be really cool to see all those books that you made and have them be real and all this other stuff.
Yeah. I packed them and shipped them and
you did it all. So that's really cool. So I think the issue is, do you think that this is an area where, because I think one of the challenges with D&D and 5e, like I could be wrong, but it seems to me like the only knob that you have from a resource perspective in Nimble is hit points and hit dice. Is that right?
There's also mana. Spellcasters have mana, like spell slots, so would be the analog. But there's wounds as well.
Okay, that's right. You do have the wounds.
How close you are, like actually to death.
Right, because that's another thing about your system that I really liked. One of the things I dislike as a general in GM, I hate stunning and paralyzing, and I don't like taking players out of it. And this may sound really weird and strange, but when I play old school games and you get to 0 hit points and you die, I actually prefer that to you actually being unconscious, because at least you know your answer and you're like, cool, I can start making my new character, which typically only takes 10 minutes in those old school games. And you're almost kind of like, it's like, cool, I get to make it. I'm going to say, hey guys, I'm going to start rolling my character. In fact, we were playing BX D&D one time, and one of my buddies died in the first round to some bandits, and the group was in trouble. He was like the fighter, and he was like, we were making our characters on 3x5 index cards, and he's just rolling his dice. And I'm like, what are you trying to do? He's like, I'm trying to get into the combat for the second round. And I was like, okay. And cool. So sure enough, he made the most basic human fighter of all time. And he was like, he's like,
reinforcements.
He's like, I heard you guys being attacked, or I was hunting the same bandits too. They killed my family, and he just comes in, and he comes in on the second round of combat. And like, and that was like a really, really awesome. That was Smith, by the way, for people at home. And that was a really cool moment because it was fun. But anyways, I hate the idea of people sitting there. So what I love about your system is that when you go to 0 hit points, basically you can keep playing and keep fighting. It's just now when you get hit and you get crit or whatever, you take these wounds. And if you get to six wounds, you're dead.
6 is default. Some might have fewer, some might have more.
Right. So like, and I'm just going to tell, like, it all depends on the scaling of how your, it all depends on how like your resource attrition and your scaling works. But like one idea could be that like maybe a trap or something, like a consequence of the game is that they just take a wound.
Yep. Yeah. And some monsters, like when they hit you, even if you have a bunch of hit points, it takes a wound, like death threats. Every time they hit you, you take a wound. Like they're sucking your life out.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of the old school D&D energy drain. I'm sure you know it.
Reduce your strength.
You lose a level permanently.
Oh, well, that's terrible. Like
no save. No save, by the way.
Like just like the thought of like having to figure out what my stats mean by like losing a level.
Yeah,
I would hate that.
Some monsters made you lose 2.
That's so stupid. I hate that.
Just from a recalculation perspective. Well, the good news is your characters were very basic, so you didn't have to worry about it too much. But
that's true.
But anyways, I like what you have as a wound system. And I like how the players can kind of choose to interact with it. Your hit points kind of work as almost a shield.
Yep.
Right. To
like a Halo.
It's like a Halo. We always use the term. Like there was a great RPG we reviewed randomly. It was called like Battle Century G. It was like some weird mech based game, but it basically you had like 3 HP bars, and it was like you had like a short term HP bar, a medium term HP bar, and a long term HP bar. And basically the top HP bar reset after every fight, right? The medium HP bar reset after every like day. And then like the long HP bar reset after every like, week in town. And so the idea was that you didn't die until that final HP bar was depleted, you know? And so you kind of got this layers of depletion, right? Which I thought was really, really cool.
That's kind of what we have: hit dice, hit points, and wounds.
Wounds, right?
But like different things can like affect. Like there might be an environmental thing that affects your hit dice.
Yes.
There might you might get stuck in a blizzard and you take a wound.
Yes. And you have 3 levels of resting, right? You have basically the short rest, the medium rest, and then the long rest, which is really cool. So I mean. Yeah, sometimes it can be fun to have games that have like a lot of like interacting conditions and stuff like that. But ultimately, I think it's about resource management. The problem is the resource management game is only cool if you can figure out a way to reward players for managing those resources, right? And that's where that advantage where I come up with, where it's like, the deeper you go, the further you go, the longer you go, the bigger, the better, the badder the reward. Because I want you to feel good about having basically budgeted your resources well and done a good job.
Absolutely.
Because if you only have to, because a lot of times the question is, can you fight these 5 monsters before you run out of all of your resources? And so, the answer is probably yes. And so it kind of feels like you're managing these resources. And they're like, and what's the alternative? We run out of resources, then what? We go back to town and we rest? And then...
So like, the limit is it's an illusion.
It's an illusion.
Right? Like,
correct.
So just like in a lot of these games, like there's all these different weapons you could pick, but like you pick the D12 because this is the biggest one.
Right.
But it like in Nimble, it's not that. Like there are some situations where the D4 dagger is much better than like a 2-handed D12 weapon. So like there are some times where it's better to do other things. Like the trade-off is where it becomes interesting. Like if it's just this is always better, it's not really a choice.
Right. Ironically, as a side, 3rd edition D&D specifically made weapons like the longsword better than other weapons because that's the weapon that you always see people using.
That's funny.
Right? Why does everyone use a sword? Like, name the last time you saw fantasy art where you saw like, a character with like, I don't know, a spiked chain or, a club. You don't.
Even a short sword.
They have swords. Maybe they have a great sword. Maybe they have a spear. Maybe they have a hammer. Like that's pretty much the given, right? Like nobody ever has these weird ass weapons. We had a couple of tips from our mutual friend here, Edward. Edward said, Evan's reaction to losing a level was priceless. How's the almond stash, Evan? Apparently that's an inside joke.
I just always have almonds. I'm all out, Edward, unfortunately.
Now, here's the important question.
Oh, but I do have these.
Raw, roasted, salted or unsalted, or wasabi covered?
Raw. No salt, not cooked.
Raw,
no
raw. Salt. Wow, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I love salt. Like, I'm a salt fiend, but like almonds, like without all that stuff, like you can sort of taste it's better. It's better for me.
Yes, there is a unique taste to almonds when they're not roasted. I think they taste it's almost a completely different nut when they are roasted, when they're not roasted. I do love me an almond. I pretty much love them all. I love macadamia nuts, even though they're ridiculously expensive. I love cashews. The one I don't really love is I love pecans in pie, but I don't like just eating pecans.
Yeah, sometimes they can be bitter.
Yeah. And pistachios are too much work. But the problem with pistachio is they're too much work. But then if you get them out of the shell, you're going to eat way too many of them. So it's just not good. Oh, here's a weird take for everybody at home. I eat peanuts in the shell.
You eat the shell too?
Yeah. Now, I don't ever really have peanuts at home. I'm not just doing it. 99% of the times, this is at a baseball stadium. But like if I get a bag of peanuts, I just eat the shell.
Is it just to gross people out, or do you do it?
I couldn't tell you. I also eat my apples. I hold the stem and I eat it from the core, I eat it
the bottom up?
Yeah, I eat it from the bottom up.
No, you don't.
I do. I really do.
Do you eat pizza backwards?
No, I do not. But I do like the crust. Also, if we go to a restaurant and I get water or a mixed drink and it comes with a lime wedge or a lemon wedge, I'm eating that wedge. Not the skin, but I'm going to bite the fruit.
I eat the straw.
Anyways. Simon eats the apple core as well. So here's the thing. You all are used to eating like the core. Like the idea of just eating the core is really gross. Okay. But if you're eating the core as just a small percentage of the apple as you're going through it, it's not bad at all.
It's like the seeds of a grape.
Yeah, it's right. You always eat the seeds in a fruit and you never really think about it. Anyways. KC says, I'm literally eating an apple right now. Just tried that. You're crazy, Derek. Listen,
yeah, like the fuzzy like butt part of the apple, like ugh.
Right. No, it's whatever. It's all just plant material anyways. Okay. So I think exploration is a cool area. I think making it modular is a really cool idea. I think to a certain extent, I don't know if this is in scope, but if you could create environmental stat blocks that work and function the way that like your mimics did and the way that your monsters did, I think that would be such a fucking win that it would be massive. Like if you could make it functional, modular, something that GMs could drop into existing games, use in low prep, no prep games, to use as building blocks when building or creating their own dungeon environment. If you had a modular system that they could apply to different dungeons to give it different sticks and different carrots to sort of play with those levers, like maybe there's something in the dungeon that lets them, recover some number of wounds, right? Yeah. Without, having to go back for a safe rest, or maybe there's something, similar with a mana value or something like that.
Yeah.
And if you could do it with the kind of style and readability and accessibility that you have in your monster display, I think that would sell exceptionally well.
So I do have like the beginnings of that in the book. But I have some draft rules if you want me to run them past you.
Yeah, let's do it.
So in the Game Master's Guide, and there's one of the adventures where you're like going into a sewer, and there's a fetid stench, in the sewer. So like the deeper into the sewer you go, there's this strength save that you have to make, and it gets increasingly harder because like the smell gets stinkier. And that has an effect as you go deeper into the dungeon. So that's like a small bit of it. But
how does that? Now I'm curious. How does that? Okay, so one of the other things I just want to add this. I'm curious what the effect is, because one of the things that you do have to worry about. One of the beautiful things about everything that we've described so far: hit points, hit dice, and wounds, is all of them avoid death spirals.
Yes,
right. One of the best. Yeah, one of the best parts about D&D is you could be at 1 hit point, 0 hit dice, all these stuff, and your character is just as effective as they were if they were at full hit points, right?
Yes.
When you start applying conditional penalties, now your character is literally worse, and you're making it harder for them to go on. So that could be really a common, difficult, challenging point.
Yeah, so death spiral is like just unfun mechanic. Like you don't need to lose more. You want like... You don't want that kind of feedback loop. You want the opposite. I forget what it's called. You want it to like self-stabilize rather than like lean more into it. So for that, like if you fail a save, you are poisoned while you're in that area. So you can heal yourself. So anytime you're healed, the poison ends, or you can like go to a different area, or like it's just disadvantage. So it's not too punishing, but like how difficult it is. So like in the beginning, like maybe the mage is like failing it because he's got really low strength, and then by the time you get to the end, like maybe even like the berserker, like the big strong guy, he's having trouble with it. So like it's just a thematic way to show that without being too punishing. It can be a resource drain if you want to like heal up and like sort of help avoid it. So it gives them that choice.
So Simon says, I like death spirals, but they also need to apply the monsters. There's a fundamental misunderstanding with that thought process, Simon. The thing is, monsters aren't going to live past the encounter that they're in, right? Players have to live for dozens, of encounters, potentially, 4 or 5 or 6 encounters just in that day, let alone the hundreds of encounters that they have to play over the course of a campaign. So yes, like from a naturalistic simulationist point of view, monsters and PCs are the same. They're both just living creatures living their lives in the world. But realistically, from a gameplay perspective, monsters are going to literally exist for 18 seconds or however long your round is,
Because it's a game. So like you might think that sounds good, but like when you actually play, like imagine like you're in an encounter, and like the first monster you kill, all of a sudden the entire encounter is just a throwaway and it's super easy. Like all of a sudden it's not fun anymore. Like it'll take you another 10 or 20 minutes to finish the encounter, but you know you're going to win. It's not fun.
Yes.
So like there is this area where like if it's too hard, it's frustrating. If it's too easy, it's boring. It has to be in this area to be fun.
Right.
So if there really was a death spiral with like monsters, then like the beginning of the encounter would be really fun, and then the rest of it would be terrible.
Right. Have you ever seen?
No, I don't think you want that.
Have you ever seen any of our videos on combat tension curves and stuff like that?
Mm-mm.
Right. So yeah, we just talk about like how D&D has this weird problem where, tension it starts the highest in round 1.
Yeah.
And then at some point it falls off a cliff, and then you're like stuck in just, cleanup. And we were talking about how like ideally tension would build over the first couple of rounds.
Yeah.
And then once it broke, the fight would essentially be over.
Yes.
And like a lot of times monsters and the encounter is at its most deadly in the first round. So it's like you're starting at the climax, and that doesn't necessarily feel right or good. And like, what are different ways that you could do that, and without, making it too fiddly and wonky?
Have you go ahead and open up the Fiends one, if you want. Have you looked at any of the legendary monsters?
We looked at a couple on the stream.
Okay.
I don't know that I couldn't list them from memory.
So the structure for the legendary monsters, they're intended to be solo. So like any number of heroes, like 2 to 20 heroes can face like this one monster without having to rebalance or do anything. But the curve, the fun curve, what did you call it? The tension curve?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think of the same way, but I haven't used those words. So like so they're designed so that in the beginning of the encounter, the heroes are sort of learning about this monster, but it feels like they're winning. And then when they hit bloodied, the monster does some big thing to turn the tide of battle. So it feels like we're losing again. And then like the heroes start winning again. And then like when like toward the end of the thing, they have this last stand that like shifts the tide again. But like, after that, they win. So like
what triggers that last stand?
When they hit 0 hit points. So just like the heroes, when they hit 0 hit points, they don't die right away. So like legendary monsters are more heroic. So they have this less stand. If they take like a small amount of additional damage, then they die.
Got it. All right. So I've got the Fiends up. We've got
this one is a draft.
Yep.
But check out the very last page for the legendary monster there. I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
This would be Vorgrath, the Insatiable.
Yep.
Okay. Ooh, Evan Reach. All right. So, what is the star?
That's their saves. So anytime he makes a save, he rolls one additional dice. So he rolls with advantage.
Tundalus says that art. Damn, it's a very nice piece of art. I love the. We call it the painterly style of art. Like Free League loves to do these kind of arts, right? Where it looks very, even if it is digital, but it may not be. But I love it when it's got this. When we did, obviously the One Ring is like this, but also, folks, when we did Coriolis, right, the Great Dark, it had a lot of pieces of art like this, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, so here we have a 375 hit point solo progenitor of fiends. After each hero's turn, perform one action, recommended in order. Bow before me. Each hero rolls 3d20. Allow each to bow, become prone, or take that much damage. I love that. The reason I love that is because I love that it gives the players a choice.
Yeah.
Which is great.
And they see, like, if they roll, like, 20, 20, 19, like, yeah, I'm going to bow. But if it's, like, 1, 2, or 3, like, no, I'm not going to bow for you, you jerk. So
I also like there's a lot of processing power here. I love that each hero rolls 3d20, right? It's not the GM rolls it. It's definitely not that the GM rolls it for each hero. It's that each hero is responsible for rolling their own 3d20. And
it's multi-threaded.
It's right. You're multi-threading your process. You know what's crazy? I remember reading. I was talking with somebody once. I think it was It might have been Mike Merles. But it's one of those things where it's like, it shows you the difficulty of being Wizards of the Coast. Okay. Mike Merles, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is lead designer of D&D for a long time. And we were talking about something about D20s, about Fireball and D20s. I don't remember what it was. And he said, do you know that part of our design is that we don't assume that the players will have more than a D20?
Like more than one of the die?
Yeah. Like they're going to have multiple D6, but they might only have one D20. And like they understand at a basic level that is not true. Like most people have dozens of D20s, you know, like.
But that's just part of their design documents. Anytime we write, we have just to assume that.
Well, yes, because it's like, you know, well, what if they're brand new to the game? What if they only have that one starter set of dice that they bought at the local game store, you know?
No. If they really cared about people who are brand new to the game, they would not do half the things they do.
Well, that's the problem, right? Is that they are trying to write a game that in theory is a game that is just as playable to someone who's just picked up an RPG for the first time and never has even known what an RPG is, and somebody who's been playing for 40 years, right? Like, how do you design a game that covers that, you know, wide of gamut, you know? Yes.
They're in a tough spot. They're in
a very tough spot. Yes. Case in point, I have at least 4 D20 on my desk. In any case, so I love this ability, but this is actually the kind of an example of an ability that, but that's just the thing, Cinnabos. You're right. There are no GMs that don't have 20 plus G, but this is asking every player to roll 3D20. Now, none of my players would have any problems with rolling any of this, but it's just kind of an example of like maybe a type of design that maybe some of the bigger companies wouldn't do because of that. Anyways.
You could always just roll 3 times. But
I mean, yes, of course you could. But now, what I love about this is, like you said, you get to make that great choice, right? Where it's like, if it's 7 damage, you go, fuck that, you know? And then if it's, you know, if it's 69, you're like, oh, it can't be 69. If it's 59 damage, you're like, okay, I'm bowing.
Yeah. And like it makes a cool moment to where like, yeah, I'm gonna be brave. Like it lets you be heroic, or it lets you be like a little bit cowardly,
right?
You know.
PJ says I only have 4 D20s. There you go. So see, PJ, even you could do this. Now, what's cool about this is this bow. This goes to the next one. Serve me, which only affects prone targets. So did you bow? Great. Well, then you can spend 3 actions for them. They regain any spent actions. Now, is the way I'm supposed to read this is after a hero, because it's a you go, I go, you go, I go, right? Initiative system?
Yeah. No. So generally with combat, all the heroes go first, just around the table in an order, or whoever wants to go first, whoever makes sense. Like whoever said I punched the guy, he goes first.
Got it.
So all the heroes go first, then the GM, the monster goes.
But
for solo monsters, solo monsters act. So 1 hero, solo monster, 1 hero, solo monster. So that no matter how many heroes there are.
Yeah, I should have refined. For solo monsters, it's a you go, I go, I go. So basically, after the first hero goes, the monster goes, and he basically does this bow thing, because it does say recommended in order. And then if you have a prone person, you basically attack with them, right? You spend 3 actions for them. And then lastly, you fly 8, then Icar Bolt, which is 6d6, the aforementioned d66 damage. You're just as likely to roll 11 as 66, which is great, to creatures in a 3x3 area. And those are its abilities. Now, again, it doesn't have to go in that order, right? So if you have 4 PCs, you would then theoretically restart back at bow before me, but you could just go suffer, suffer, suffer if you wanted to, I suppose.
You could, but then like they'll spread out and you're not dealing nearly as much damage as you could.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? What was it? One of the cool things in Fabula Ultima is that when the creator originally created the game, it uses an initiative system, and it uses a popcorn initiative system, right? Where, like, you know, 1 PC goes, then 1 monster goes, then 1 PC goes, then 1 monster goes. It's always true. But it used to have this, you had to roll initiative, and I was kind of critical of it. And the game designer was like, yeah, you were right. Like, we got rid of it. And so, like, they didn't officially update it, but like the unofficial update is basically that the PCs always go first, you know, and then the monster goes. But if it's a villain, the villain gets the first action, which I always thought was really cool. So like
they break the rules.
Yeah, they break the rules. But I'm just saying, I could totally see Vorgath the Insatiable starting the fight and being like, bow before me is the first action of the fight. That'd be kind of cool. Anyways, now at Bloodied, we get this bleed with me. At 187 hit points, Vorgath infects lacerated on all heroes. Suffer 1 damage for each space you move or are moved. Healing or a DC 15 examination check ends. Now, again, this just happens to them. There's no saves. It just is now a condition that they have to deal with. Yep. I should also note that any amount of healing would end this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then lastly, when they get to 0 hit points, you have to hit them for another 140. Where's that 140 number come from?
So there's a chart that I've mathed everything out. It's basically it's the level times 10, so it's the level 14 solo monster. Got it. So it's calculated to last a certain number of additional hero turns, so that you get right up to that line of tension of like, can we do this, right? But not so long where it's like, oh, it's an extra slog.
Because that's actually something that I think is really neat about games like Daggerheart and Fabula Ultima. As I mentioned, in those games, when a player gets to 0 hit points, even if the party TPKs, the players make a choice, right, to either go out in a blaze of glory, and in which case, usually they're going to do something really awesome, like as the monster stabs them, they leap up and impale themselves on the creature's spear and stab him in the heart or whatever. Yeah. But you have this cool moment before they go out, guaranteeing that any time a character dies. In fact, in Fabula Ultima, your character cannot choose to sacrifice their character unless there is a villain present on the scene. You literally can't choose to die just on, hey, you're wandering through the forest and you have a random encounter, a bunch against the imps, they beat you. But what is neat about it is, as a GM and as a game designer, you basically don't have to worry about game balance kind of at all, because if you did throw something at the party that is just way too difficult, worst case scenario, they're all going to they all die or something. And you just go, oh, okay, everybody chooses to surrender. And it's kind of like one of those scenes in a JRPG where you're like, oh, that must've been one of those fights you're supposed to lose,
it was a cutscene.
Yeah, it was a cutscene. In fact, in Fabula Ultima, there's this meta resource called Fabula Points, which you get 2 points of when your character surrenders. So you actually get rewarded for dying. It's kind of funny. Tunnels wants to know, how much is a PC hitting for per turn at this level?
You can look at
he's got his chart.
I don't know.
He's got his chart. Creator's kit. Let's see. There we go.
Level 14, you'd expect them to be dealing like 40, 45 damage per turn. But he does have medium armor, so that would mitigate it a bit.
And that's per PC, right?
Per hero. And basically the math is in the Creator's Kit, but it's intended to last 15 hero turns. So if you have 5 heroes, it's 3 rounds. If you have fewer, each one will get more turns. If you have more heroes, then
how do you get to 45 damage in this game? I'm just kind of curious. Well, like 50. Like, are you because you're not rolling a bunch of dice, right? You is it just static bonuses? Like, are you rolling like
there's some static bonuses. So let me just look one of the heroes. So like, for instance, if you look at the cheat, they have a sneak attack. So when they crit, they deal extra damage. And by level 14, that's an additional 2d12 damage.
Okay.
When they do that. So, and there's different ways you can like maximize that and like goose it to deal extra damage. But on average, that's what it is. Each hero has a different way of getting there.
What would you say is the variance on that 45? Like what? How? What's the?
It could be like 0.
What's the bell curve look like, right? Like what do the tails look like? Like, is it a very tight bell curve? Like, are you doing?
Yeah, I could give you a good guess.
Like the standard. What's the standard deviation?
Yeah, standard deviation, plus or minus 20.
Okay.
It'd probably be closer to like 20 to 50 damage.
Right. Because I mean that's one of the hard things to do with normal D&D is you have this weird thing where it's like, yeah, or you could just do 0 a bunch, right? So it's really tough because you miss.
No, the floor is a lot higher than like dealing 0 damage on your turn half the time.
Right, exactly. So that's why averages are so weird in D&D because you have your average damage, but that average damage assumes that there's like a good, like you said, like roughly a 50% chance, give or take, that you did nothing and you missed completely. So
correct. So it's a lot more robust to fiddling with the numbers. So it's a lot more forgiving.
Now, do you still expect this character or this creature to last like 3 to 4 rounds?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, like once it goes through playtesting, but the numbers are all based on the math that is at the core of the game.
Do you, I haven't run this. Do you feel like this would get, because you're doing this after every hero's turn. So that means after the first round, you have done all 3 of these, possibly one of them multiple times. Do you think that gets samey?
So you're targeting different heroes. You're moving in different areas. You're doing enough other things in the hero. So like the monster itself doesn't need to do as many things as all the 4 or 5 heroes are doing. Like the monster needs to be somewhat predictable. Like not doing the same thing every round if it's a solo, but doing things enough times to where the heroes can sort of unlock the puzzle of it if they're interested in that. So they can use their tactics and figure out how to best approach this guy. So that kind of thing is rewarded. If you had 10 abilities and he never did the same thing twice, then like why bother trying to figure it out? He's doing random things, right?
Got it. Yeah, again, because I'm just trying to think that like, and again, I'm totally just putting on like a gut reaction. Like I could see that like the bow before me thing would be cool. Like the first time, maybe the second time, but like if it happened to me like a third time, I would start to feel like at a certain point, like, okay, I get it. We're bowing. Yeah. You know, I mean, like I could see where it could feel like it could start to get a little bit samey. But again, presumably you're only fighting this guy once in an entire campaign. Yeah. So it's not like the end of the world.
There's a little more subtlety to it. So like the bow before me is sort of like setting things up to get them to use the second ability. The second ability, you can spend any of the hero's actions. So you can do anything the heroes can do. Right. So there's a lot more depth there.
That's true.
If the heroes are all spread out, like you can use the ability that your bud always uses to do this things, like you know their combos at that point. So you can do a lot of things if you want that depth. But if you want to do the predictable stuff, then you can be predictable. Or they can say like, make sure the mage never bows, because if he's allowed to do something to us, like that'd be terrible. Right.
Now there's another thing, and I'm just picking you apart here, but
go ahead.
There's a weird situation where if the players are smart, this is going to sound weird, but it is true. If the players are smart, they won't bow, and they will stay spread apart. In which case, Serve Me literally can't function, and Suffer is fairly inefficient to the point. I mean, it does do damage, but is there something to be said about like if the players play this optimally, they get rewarded with a boring encounter?
If they play, so I think the way you described it is not actually them playing optimally. So one of the biggest, one of the most important things in the game is interposing. So for as many hit points as the heroes have, like 2 or 3 hits and they're at 0. Like, you know, it's 1 or 2 hits for some of the hero classes.
And for people who may not know, can you remind us what interpose does? I know it's an action that forces you to become the target of the attack. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, so if the bad guy's attacking you, your buddy who's close by can make himself the target of the attack instead.
Is that before or after the die roll?
After. So like if you see them miss, you don't have to waste it. If you see like, oh, it's a weak little attack, like he can take it. But if it's a crit, like he can't take that much damage, he'll die. So we want to give the players as the most information as possible, so they're not like guessing or wasting.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
So interposing, like that players can interpose for each other is part of how survivable the party is. Right. So if this guy just attacks one hero like twice, that hero's down, or maybe 3 times. So they can't just spread out, otherwise they can't interpose for each other. Like they lose this tactical thing that is very, very important to the core of the game. So they have to be within a certain range. Like if they did spread out, like he can just go over here and just like blast this guy. and the party can't help them. So they have to be within this sort of medium range of like far enough apart not to get like, blasted with Ichor Bolt, but close enough to where they can take care of whoever's in trouble. And like there's sort of this cool dance of back and forth of who he's picking on. And I think it's a little bit more subtle than you might think, just imagining it.
Okay, so now I'm gonna nitpick a second thing. I think that's a good answer, and I think that's interesting. Understanding how interposing, because properly interposing essentially turns the party's hit point pool into a group shared pool, basically, to a certain extent.
To a certain extent, but you're using your actions to interpose, so
okay.
The survivability goes up. So it's at a cost. Everything's at a cost, and everything is a trade-off.
Regarding lacerated, do you worry? And I saw some other things in the mimic or the lacerated, right, with the escape check. Do you worry that it's a little bit? I don't want to say disincentivized, but it could lead to a lot of maybe, I don't know. It could either be disincentivized. Players could feel worse for taking the action. You're playing this nimble combat and you're doing your cool dice rolls and you're not rolling ones. You're rolling with advantage or whatever. You're hitting. You're never missing. It's fun. And then it's like, oh, they're lacerated. I'm going to make a DC 15 examination check. And now suddenly I'm rolling a D20 and I could fail just like any other game. Does that feel like a little bit like of jarring? Because does that make that action even somehow more unappealing than just, I'm going to keep attacking or I'm going to do something that I know doesn't have this like failure state hanging over my head where I literally use my action and accomplish nothing. Or, hey, you could fight the mimic or you could try to escape. And you're like, no, if I have to escape, I have to make a DC 20 check or a DC 15 check. And I don't want to roll D20s. I want to just, do the thing that's going to happen.
Yeah. So in Nimble, the highest your any individual skill can go is plus 12. So best case scenario, like you have someone with plus 12 examination by level 14, you could pretty easily have that. So you would very likely. So you have a choice. You can ignore it. Just I'm going to run. I'll take damage. That's fine. That's straight off you're willing to make. You can do an examination check yourself. You can drink a healing potion or ask someone else to heal you, or you can have one of like the party member, like the doctor, examine you and like fix it, right? So there's multiple choices you can deal with it. If you didn't have any way out of it, that might feel a bit too punishing, or if it was too punishing to get out of it, that would feel too bad. Or if it's too easy to get out of it, like I'll just spin in a circle and it goes away. Like, all right, I'll just do that and just keep running. So it has to be in this area where there's a real chance of failure. But the person who like specializes in this, like, yeah, he should have like an 80-ish% chance of like doing this, like succeeding. But the person like the big dumb guy, like who's like negative something in this, like he shouldn't really expect to be able to do this. Maybe he'll get lucky. Maybe he has a 10% chance of getting it. But he would know he's getting lucky, right? So there is this range where there's enough choices, there's enough ways to deal with this. So it's not just like it's happening to you. You feel like you're being picked on. But the right people can be expected to do this reliably, but not certainly. And the wrong people can get lucky and do it and feel good about being lucky, but not really reasonably expect to be able to do it.
And what
does
is
that
that?
make sense?
Yeah, but what is that? I'm curious. This is level 14 or whatever. What is that threshold for you? And does that threshold always exist throughout the course of the game in the levels? You mentioned 80%. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, do you like the mimic and someone like, would you view someone trying to escape the mimic and they spend their turn trying to escape and they fail all three? Like, do you view that as a failure state of your game?
I think that should not be the expected outcome. Like if you want to spend your entire time doing something, you should expect to be able to do that. Like if you're willing to pay the cost to do that.
Right.
So a lot of these, it'll be like DC, whatever, check, or slashing damage. If you have a knife, you could cut the tentacle or cut the net. So there's usually multiple ways out of it.
Okay.
And if you're weak and you don't have a knife, then yeah, you're stuck in a net. Like that,
right.
that makes sense. It seems fair, right?
Sure. No, I think
did that answer your question?
It does. I mean, to the sense that it seems like part of your design philosophy is to always make sure that there is a sort of alternative escape route, right? Like you said, like the other thing too, which I think is important, is like I don't know what we could pull up the creator's kit here again. We're level 14. Give or take PCs, we're rocking about 100 hit points, give or take. So 1 point of damage per movement isn't like the end of the world, right? You know, like it's not nothing, you know, but like, you know, if I move and attack and, you know, I might take 5-6 damage, you know, or something like that.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not much, but if you're dying, any amount of damage is going to cause a wound.
Yeah.
And if he does serve me, he can move you farther away from himself. So you're taking damage being moved, and then you have to move back to get him. So like it adds up. It's more of a like, oh, just 1 damage. Like I can take that for a couple of rounds, or maybe 1 round, and then like, oh, it's starting to add up. Now I need to deal with this. So it gives that like the impending doom. Like if I don't deal with this or deal with him, like we're going to lose, right? Yeah. It's sort of like the clock that you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, I know that some of my patron members, you know, they love, you know, 3-page bosses with, you know, multi-phases, and
Don't say that.
Oh, it's very popular. You know, that is not me. I will say that. Only because I'm very aware of how role-playing games actually go, you know, and that is that the monsters and the bosses always die faster than you think they will. And I also feel like there's a natural instinct, I think, for GMs when monsters have big, long, complicated stat block. God damn it! I paid for this monster. I'm gonna get the monster's gonna do all its cool stuff, and that's when you get tempted to like cheat and fudge the hit points.
Increases hit points,
yeah, and which only does the advantage. You know, and by the way, you're not even intending to kill the party members, especially if you start fudging. You're definitely not gonna like cheat to kill them. So now it's just like we're just delaying the game for purposes.
It's just it's theater.
Yeah, exactly.
But like this guy,
we call it the official term is illusionism, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. Like this guy, if they burn him down really quick, well, then like his 2 powerful abilities like come online faster.
Right.
So like it's one of those self-balancing things.
Right. You know, Simon is, I believe Simon earlier had made a mention about something he disliked. I don't remember what it was, Simon, but Simon said, which is a very classic sort of GM reaction, which is the players get to do all their cool stuff too. It's only fair that I get to use my buttons. See, like I very much don't have that view as a GM. In fact, I don't even like rolling dice as a GM, you know, at all. I much prefer the players to roll everything because I don't view my role as, you know, the players get to do their stuff too. That's not my job. That's not my role. I'm doing something very different. And so I don't view it as this ability says like, oh, like I get to do all my cool abilities for my monster. No, I care more about, you know, the player's engagement and them having an engagement time. So
it's very self-sacrificial.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, with unlimited cosmic power, itty bitty living space, you know, like it's
you could spawn 1,000 red dragons there if you
right,
wanted to.
Exactly. So but Jake says players rolling defense is the first house rule I make in every F20 game. Now, to be clear, one of the things that I actually really like about your system is that the defensive option is in the player's hand. And I also like this thing where I call it, which is like Blades in the Dark has this idea of like you speak the badness first, and then players can choose to resist the consequence. The difference is, have you played Blades in the Dark?
No, I have it.
Oh, okay.
Up here somewhere. But
so imagine your defense rule or defend rule, but imagine your interpose rule. But imagine if that applied to everything, not just damage, right?
Yeah.
So like your rogue could be running from rooftop to rooftop, and you make a check to leap from one rooftop to another rooftop. You fail, and I speak into existence as a GM the consequence, which is that your character falls, you know, several stories below and splats and takes a bunch of damage on the the cobblestone streets. Your character then chooses to resist that complication, which means that doesn't happen. Now you lose some resource called stress, but as a player, you get to basically say, no, my rogue is cooler than that. That's not what happens. I get to decide this what happens. I'm willing to pay this. And so your defend ability has that ability. It actually makes taking damage cool.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of like, yeah, that was going to happen. I was going to take that damage.
Yep.
But because I did this thing, it didn't. And that actually can feel very, very empowering.
It does. I can't tell you how many times someone's like, you take 19 damage. I'll tell them this. And they're like, I got 20 armor, and they're like, oh, like that's a fun part.
It is a huge moment. It is an absolutely massive moment.
Yep.
You know, and you're absolutely like, so in you know, Barbarian in 5th edition, I think, is one of the best designed classes, actually. Because when you rage, you just take half damage. And paradoxically, you're like, I hope I get hit for 40. I hope I get hit for 50, because I want to be able to say,
bring it.
I take 25. You know, it feels good to be able to sort of, you know, speak that truth to power, you know? So yeah, very, 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 very cool.
There's something similar in Nimble. It's you can help as a reaction. So like if you see something bad happen to someone, if you have some way of reasonably helping them, then like it can either happen or you can make a check or whatever.
Do you ever run into a problem where you have a character with heavy armor and they get their turn and they just go pass?
No, because you get your actions back at the end of your turn. So
right.
you never need to save them.
No, but that's my, oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. Their turn comes and they have no actions because they spent them all but they spend them all every turn. Like all they do, all they do is interpose and defend.
Yeah. So like the Oathsworn, it's like the Paladin class. He can interpose for free. But if he defends or whatever, if he does like reactions, then when his turn comes, like he gets his 3 actions back. And some people like to play that way. I don't think it's possible to play that way every round, but might there be some rounds, some turns where you don't have any actions because you already spent them? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
well, only because, I mean, yes, it is a form of activity, but you know, let's call it what it is. You're not, you know, there is a difference between defending and interposing and like, you know, getting to do your cool attack or doing your cool thing. And sometimes I notice that when in some games where like tanks have that ability, it can tend to lead to like a very passivity, you know, in the actions of your characters where they're just like, I do the thing that lets me do my thing. And I do that every round forever, you know?
Yeah. So those sworn, like he's incentivized to interpose because like when he is attacked, he's able to deal extra damage. Like he gets these extra dice that he can roll with his attacks. So like the cool thing that you want to do in the fantasy is also the incentivized thing mechanically that is best for your hero also.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think if like you said, it's an optional thing and, you know, you're able to do it. And I think the ring that really changes it, right, is you're making those decisions after you've seen what the GM rolls. Yeah. So if the mage gets hit and you're nearby and you have heavy armor, but the mage only got hit for like 5 damage and the mage goes, I'm good. Save it. You go, okay. You know, and when the mage gets hit for 15 and you go, okay. Yeah. And then you step in, you take the hit.
More heroic.
Yeah. So that actually changes the math on that a lot. And I actually think for the better.
Yeah. Seeing the difference between what could have been and what actually happened is huge. Like you get hit with a $500,000 medical bill and then insurance, it's $5. You're like, yeah, insurance. Like,
right. You know,
but if you didn't get the bill, like, I got a bill for $5.
You notice that they go out of their way to send you that bill for $0, you know, where they're like, what you owe? $0. You're like, oh, my insurance must be amazing. And it's totally great. We should totally keep supporting this single payer system. Or this non-single payer system. But anyways, very cool stuff. So, so it's already past. Well, it's long past when I thought we were going to stop. But I got to say, you know, I think you've got some really great designs. I love the look of your monsters. I love the look of these new monsters. I think they're interesting, incredibly. You know, I think your GM advice is in the right mindset. You know, again, we talked about what does it mean to be 5e compatible. It sounds like you've kind of maybe, I think it potentially, I guess my question is, who is your audience? Is your audience 5e players? You mentioned how like all the grognards are coming out and going, oh, this is the cool game that I want to run, you know, like I'm just curious, like, how does that change your marketing? How does that change your approach to who this game is marketed to?
I mean, the direction of the game isn't changing, but you know, I would rather like to me it's 5e compatible. But like if other people, like if even a portion of people disagree, then like I don't want to overpromise, you know, at least in their eyes. So I think what I'm saying now is like you can easily convert, like, you know, 5e easily, like use 5e stuff with it. I think that's fair enough. But who is it for? Like I made the game for me. Like I made a game that's
probably the best answer. Yeah.
Yeah, like I know what I like. Like I'm an expert in that. Like I don't know what everybody else likes, but if other people like it, cool. But like if someone wants a character sheet that is like, you need a binder to hold it, and you want like, give me the thicker books, and I want 5,000 spells and 2,000 different feats, like that is not fun for me.
Yeah, that is definitely some people for sure. And I think I got to really respect you too, because you could see that there's a lot of restraint in your design. I mean, I think that's one of the problems that I have, right? Where I want to solve every issue. And to solve every issue, I need to make a rule for it. I need to make a mechanic for it. I need to add.
Oh man, I did a lot of that stuff. Like, all right, let's make some rules for how far you can throw an ally.
Right.
And then like I was like, this is not worth it.
Right. I think my situation is even not like, I don't really care about the simulationism as much. So like, I don't care about how far you far an ally. But like for me, it's like figuring out like, this is important to me in the game. So that game should be, if something is important, it should have a mechanic is what I'm trying to get at. Like I want this to be sort of represented. And so it's like, in a way you end up, again, we mentioned Magic the Gathering, right? Where, I don't know, there's like 175 mechanic keywords in Magic the Gathering, technically, right? Like, flying and trample. Yeah, but there's a lot of ones, the splice and, banding, bands with others. There's, there's a lot of like, there's a lot of crazy rules. And so I think it's important to sort of figure out like, well, what do I care about? What does my game care about? Like, because what what I always say, what gets measured gets managed. What gets rules matters. So like one of the things that you could talk about when you look at a game is, what does this game have rules for? Because in a certain way, that's what the game is saying it cares about. Now, there is this thing in the OSR called Fruitful Void. I don't know if you've heard. Where the idea is like,
I've not heard the term, but
okay,
I can imagine what that means.
So what the Fruitful Void, for example, Alien, not Alien, Mothership, which is a game from Tuesday Night Games. You may know. Do you know what Mothership is?
Yeah, I've got it down here.
Okay, they don't have rules for stealth. Now the game is about like being on a haunted, monster infested, alien ship. It's basically Aliens, kind of whatever the RPG. But it doesn't have rules for stealth. So that's what they call the Fruitful Void. It's the idea that we don't want this game to have rules for this thing that we actually think is important.
Because the rules would constrain it or get in the way of it in some way.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of like old school D&D. People go like, there was no perception check. So, if a character wanted to find the secret door hidden on the bookshelf, they had to describe going over to the bookshelf.
How are you searching?
Look, and I call it DM pixel bitching. But, where you're like, oh, you said you looked at the books and you said you touched the books, but you didn't say that you touched the one book. And that's what you needed to do to open up the secret door. It's like,
that could get frustrating.
On. Yeah. So it can get frustrated. So, and that's the problem with like, even with Mothership, you're like, well, as the creature comes around the corridor, it locks eyes on you. Go, no, wait. What do you mean it locks eyes on me? I'm hiding. Well, no, you said you moved behind the pillar, but you didn't really say that you moved like behind the pillar at an angle so that the creature coming around the corner couldn't see you. I just assumed that you were behind the pillar so that the creatures in the room could, and it's like, it could be this.
It's antagonistic, I don't like that kind of thing. So enough rules to have a structure and to adjudicate what happens when it's unclear. But if it's easy enough to adjudicate what would happen, then you don't need a rule. And having a rule is not only not necessary, but it gets in the way. So, there's a balance. I do like, I sort of get, I don't like when people say like, oh, Nimble's about combat. No, like it's one portion of it. No, there's no exploration rules. Like you don't need rules to like, I'm going to climb up the mountain, there's a challenge. There's this hole in front of you. What do you do? Like, you don't really need rules for that. Maybe a structure to help the GM create those kinds of situations more easily and incentivize interacting with it. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But like, you don't need rules for like how to run. Like you propel, like how strong are your calves compared to your thighs? And like,
you'd be surprised. There is some RPG out there.
I'm sure there. But like, you can move this far, like you're running or hopping or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. So I very much appreciate that. What did you call it? Fruit of the Void?
Oh, Fruitful Void.
Fruitful Void. Yeah.
Yes. But to be clear, Fruitful Void, the idea of it is specifically is the thing that the game does care about doesn't get rules, right?
Yeah.
Where in an absence way, it'd be like if you said, hey, I really don't like 5th edition combat, but I love heroic fantasy combat. It's, I think, it's not the only thing in a D&D session, but it's definitely like, the hallmark, and it's the cool moment. So I'm creating an RPG that doesn't have combat rules.
No, I think you couldn't do that because like you can't say like, all right, well, I'm gonna do some cool martial arts stuff to that goblin.
You could. and then based on how cool you described you doing martial arts to that goblin, the GM would tell you the goblin is dead.
Yes, that's not a game. In my opinion, that's a conversation. And there's a fine line sometimes. So I think I might.
By the way, I agree. I hate the Fruitful Void personally. That's just me.
Okay.
But
I would tweak it. I have some appreciation of that. I would tweak it so that like maybe not no rules, but like the minimal rules necessary to facilitate this.
Yes. But Dill Thurber says, like how Brendan Lee Mulligan doesn't like role-playing rules because he plays with professional actors. Yes. So, there's a game, Dragonbane, and it has very simple conditions like angry and exhausted and frightened and disheartened, one tied to each of the 6, basically of strength decks. And one like Bob, one of my co-hosts, he talked about how for his group of friends, those were immensely helpful for playing their character. They had never role played a character's emotion before in their life, but suddenly the game says, hey, your character is angry. You have disadvantage to intelligence checks, but it's not just disadvantage to intelligence checks. Your character is angry. You have the angry condition. And suddenly they were like, oh, cool. Well, I'm going to yell at that guy because I'm pissed off. And then they were like, whoa, this is awesome. So I think that there can be a lot of benefit. And so you're right. Like Brendan Lee Mulligan probably doesn't need that to do that. But yes, Mark Lore, I understand that the idea is that by not having mechanics, the idea is it's supposed to increase engagement and all that other stuff. And I get what the theory is. But again, Vincent, by the way, that's not like a new thing. People blame it with the OSR. Oh, Vincent Baker was talking about Fruitful Void back in like the eras, like the days of the Forge. And his whole idea was design your game to pose a question and then make sure your game doesn't trample on the answers. So like his idea is that the game shouldn't both pose a question and provide the answer at the same time. But anyways,
there's a difference between like a well-curated bookshelf and an empty bookshelf.
Right. Correct.
And an overly crowded bookshelf.
Correct. Correct. Yes. By the way, there is the opposite of the Fruitful Void, which is like the stacked shit house. I don't know, like it's just like, I've got a rule for that. I've got a book for that. I've got a book for that. So, there is something to be said about finance wrecking pellets. But yeah, this is very, very, very cool. Very exciting. I'm looking forward to the future of Nimble. Has anybody designed anything for a third party or for you yet?
Yeah. Okay. A bunch of people. There's like a monthly or bi-monthly magazine the community's putting together. There's like tons of websites and like maybe thousands of monsters and bunches of like tons of things. Like the community is like incredibly active.
Is there any like super secret special stretch goal or something that you would really like to do with this upcoming campaign?
I mean, I'd like to do solo rules. A lot of people asked about that. I'd love to do exploration rules. There's a 4th class. So I'm planning on 3 new classes. And classes, like out of everything, classes are the hardest to make because lots of reasons. But I'm hoping to make a 4th class. I have art for it already.
Okay. You did mention that you've already started collecting too much art.
I have. There's a lot of really cool things I'd like to do. I'd like to make like a new starter adventure. So in the GM guide, there's like a starter adventure. You start in a tavern, you go kill some goblins. I'd like to make a prison break starter adventure.
Okay, cool.
I think those like have really cool potential. There's a bunch of things I'd love to do, but may or may not happen.
What is your current VTT status?
There's a Foundry module. It is pretty close to being done. So I hired a developer and
did you? You went
Yeah. I hired a developer and he basically quit. He quit.
Oh, well, that's not
like
good.
I paid him and he was like, yeah, I'm done. And it was not finished, so the community has sort of come together and helped to finish it. Like, I don't do VTT stuff, so I just I'm not helpful there.
No, but I think that's great that you took that upon yourself. I think a lot of people nowadays play games online, and I think having an officially creator supported, rather than just strictly there's this one girl in my community and she took it upon herself and design it, and the entire maybe the fate of thousands of people playing my game rests on whether or not this one person, this one volunteer, decides to update my module or not. So that's great.
There's Foundry. It's on Quest Portal already. We're coming on Alchemy.
Oh, great.
There's an Owlbear Rodeo plugin.
Perfect.
I mean, you just use Owlbear Rodeo just by itself.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
But there's a plugin. So there's a few. I think there's some others. I'm not sure. There's a lot of VTTs out there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you do Foundry, because Roll20 has a whole hurdle of its own. But if you do Foundry and then you do some additional support for some of the the more light ones like Alchemy or Owlbear Radio, I think you're well ahead of the curve. So that's really great. In fact, Jaybird says, I played Nimble on Foundry just today. Only session 0, but it seems to be about 90% complete and working very well. Yeah. So that's great. We had a super chat question for you before we let you go, Evan. Question for Evan. What would you like to see more of from the community? Plus, what is your favorite game from the last year that's not Nimble?
What I'd like to see from the community. It's hard for me to ask anything more from the community than they've already given. So I was planning on launching the initial the more recent crowdfunder 2 years ago, I think, in February, and I was like, I'm pretty much done. And then I launched it in the summertime, and I realized I'm not even halfway done because of all the improvements and all the feedback and everything the community has given. So the community has been great. I can't ask anything else of them. They've just been 11 out of 10. I'm sure you know how that is with your community. Your community seems
Absolutely.
to be super cool, super tight.
Yes, very, very, very cool. That's
favorite game that
that's why I got laid off from my job and I didn't have to have a panic attack because I have a very cool community.
That is great to have that support. Being a game designer means you don't get to play a lot of games.
Right. I see some good stuff on your shelf. I see Mythic Bastion Land. I see the Tome of Adventure Design. What else do I see? We got Skirples. We got Monster Overhaul by Skirples. There's some Glare. Oh, yeah, I see Shadow Dark.
Alien, Electric Bastion Land, OSR stuff. There's stuff up here, and then everything down here below what you can see, like Land of Eam, Lancer, Ion Heart, Dragonbane, Forbidden Lands.
Are those books deliberately in rainbow order there on your bookshelf?
Yeah, my wife did that. So I have to, if I'm looking for a book, I have to remember, was that blue or green?
Yeah, Cinnabos says we hate Derek's takes, but he is cool though. Thank you, Cinnabos. I appreciate you. That's cool. No, last year was a big. I mean, Daggerheart, Draw Steel, the Cosmere game. I mean, there was a lot of tent pole releases for sure.
I've got those.
I've got those.
Yeah, I haven't played them or read them, but I have them.
There you go. Where do you do most of your playtesting? Just with your local group, or do you use your community? Or you said you're not really running online, so.
Yeah, community helps a lot. I've got some local friends who are helping out with that. I've got some dedicated people. Ross, if Ross is watching, and Matt, they do a lot. They do a lot to help me.
Very cool.
So just people who've been volunteering for it. But the math is pretty tight and very solid. So a lot of playtesting that you would expect to need isn't needed. So the playtesting is well, is it fun?
Yeah, right. Like you said, the math is sort of figured out at this point. It's more, but was it, just because it's well, Mark Rosewater in his 20 game design tips says don't conflate interesting with fun, right? They're not necessarily the same thing.
Or balanced with fun. Or
right, balance is not always more fun, which is one of the biggest hurdles I think facing a lot of RPG design these days, is that a lot of people are obsessed with balance and trying to make everything perfectly balanced. So.
Or accurate with fun. Oh, this is how it would really work in real life.
Right, exactly. It's not at all how it works at all. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great last question, Jack. I think that's where we'll end because it's 10:30.
Right.
And unlike me, Evan has, children and a wife and, life to deal with. Any plans for any of the conventions? Are you planning on doing any of the shows this year?
If there's any, like, I might be able to do one. Like, there's no current plans, but if there's any that people recommend, like, I might be able to do one. But no, there's no current plans.
Yeah, I mean, where East Coast, West Coast, middle?
Yeah, East Coast of Florida.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say Florida. There's not really a lot of
There's
conventions.
MegaCon, which is not. It's not really a game.
Right. Same Dragon Con in Atlanta, but that's also kind of not as much. I mean, there's
I can fly.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously Gen Con is the big one, and there's PAX Unplugged in Philly at the end of the year, but those are two pretty good ones. So, in terms of being Pathfinder PhD says Origins. Yes, this year we had so many patrons show up to the gaming conventions. Origins is probably the number 3 or number 4 gaming convention.
Yeah.
We had so many of my patrons show up and they ended up just playing games with each other the whole convention. So this year I'm buying a room at the convention to just act as a VIP lounge for my community members, so that we can set up snacks and drinks and stuff for them and have them have their own place to play. Basically, it'll be like a convention within the convention. So
that is so cool.
So
it's cool that you could do that, man.
Yeah. In fact, one of the things that we want to do, I've been printing out all this 3D terrain for dungeon terrain, and I wanted to do this big mega dungeon, like cover an entire 8x4 table with terrain, like a dungeon terrain. And they used to do this at Gen Con years ago. It was called the Delve. The idea was you would start at one end of the table and try to fight your way across the table, and inevitably hundreds of characters would die or whatever over the course of the 4 days of convention. And I've wanted to do that, and it's mostly just combat and having fun and dying in glorious ways. But now I'm thinking what do I want to use? I'm wondering maybe if I might use Nimble.
That would go quick.
Just give everybody one wound basically, or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's when you get to 0, it's one more hit, you're basically dead, basically, to make it a little bit more lethal. By the way, I love that as a dial, FYI. You could easily dial up or down the lethality of your game by just giving people more wounds. But it's fun, it's quick, it's fast paced, it's exciting. Maybe we'll use Nimble, folks. So we'll talk about that on the Discord. But it could be the perfect game because everyone basically knows, D20 5e. You know what I mean? And Nimble, like you said, it's 5e compatible, kinda. So everyone knows how to use it. Oh, great! What's my attack roll? No, you don't roll an attack roll. All right, what's my charisma? You don't have a charisma. But it's you know what? I like GM Scott. It's 5e adjacent. How about that?
That's fine. That's fine.
No, but I think it's really cool, and I'm glad to see that you're getting a lot of support from the community, and that my community, who's pretty, I mean, there's a lot of people in my community, unfortunately, who are sort of 5e is the devil, and I'm never going back. To which I would say, number 1, 5e is not the devil, but number 2, I would say, I think a lot of people's problems with 5th edition probably have to do with the slog and the relatively, not worth itness of the combat. And this game seems to really solve a lot of those issues. So that's, and then the rest of the stuff, as Evan pointed out, there's never really been mechanics for that much in D&D anyways, other than just, roll a D20, hope you roll high, right? High number, good. So nothing there has changed. Riveter says, how lethal overall is Nimble?
It's as lethal as you want to be. So it's very, so if you have 5 level 5 heroes, you add up their levels 25. So if you want a hard encounter, you have monsters that equal 25. If you want it to be more lethal, 30. If you want it to be easier, 20. So
what does hard encounter mean to you?
Yeah. So the definition is here. I don't remember what I wrote.
Okay.
So easy is easy helps players feel powerful. They shouldn't expect to expend very many resources. Medium, heroes will get hurt but shouldn't drop to 0 hit points. Hard should be challenging but fair. They have to use significant resources. Some might drop to 0, but none should die, barring poor tactics or luck. And then there's deadly and very deadly, which is, harder than that.
So basically, once you get to hard, you might expect some people to take a couple wounds, is what you're basically getting to.
Yeah, so if it's equal, unless they're really, really tactically savvy, then you should expect someone to drop to 0.
Yeah, cool. That's very cool. And that alone already makes it better because you have that idea, that more longer term resource attrition of wounds, which I think is really, really cool.
So,
all right. Well, any final words, Evan?
No, that's it for now. I do have a bunch of other things I'd like to run past you, maybe at a future date. I've got some draft exploration dungeon delving rules that I'm toying with. Just other things. I appreciate your wealth of knowledge and giving me words and terms to use to better flag things.
We're nothing if not full of useless vocabulary. So Tundalus says, "Hell yeah, dungeon exploration." Yeah, absolutely. I mean, totally. Again, consider me a resource. I'm happy to have you on again, or we could do a separate call or whatever. We could even just email and exchange back and forth. Hey, thank you, Danabra, for becoming a sponsor. Appreciate you. And again, I'd love to do it. And one of the things I love doing with this channel is being able to support, indie game designers and people who are coming at it with a unique passion and a cool bespoke viewpoint. I think that's really great. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you a lot, Evan. Thank you a lot, everybody. We had a lot of support coming out tonight. I hope you guys are excited. Again, he didn't shill it. I'll shill it. Make sure that you sign up for the upcoming Kickstarter. There's a link in the description below where you can sign up and get onto the announcement letter and the newsletter. That'll take you over to the existing page. Again, it's going to be a reprint of the original book, which has been sold out. You'll be able to get a hang on that. And again, it sounds like it might sell out again. So this could be an opportunity to get it if you haven't gotten it already. And of course, if you do like these rules, I mean, you can even check out you still have your 5e house rules available, right, out there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, maybe maybe you don't want to play Nimble. You just want to play 5e with some of these changes. That's great. That's cool too. You can totally go check this out and check it out. So I recommend it. I think it's a really cool game. There's a lot of it's fast and tactical, which is, I think, really great for me. A lot of the tactical games that have come out lately, I don't get me wrong, I love them, but Draw Steel, Lancer, Beacon, yada yada yada. Like, look, by the way, like in a game of Lancer, a combat is expected to take 2 to 3 hours. So, like,
no,
yes,
you fast and tactical don't have to be opposites.
You are supposed to get through like 1 combat per session.
No.
Yes. So, yes. And again, I can't speak to Draw Steel. I have only played it in the beta, but I'm going to go out and Tundalus, by the way, takes offense. Jackal, he says, trespasser in this but I promise you, it's snappy. Listen, there's always a trade-off, and there's always going to be something for somebody else. I'm simply saying that I could play a 30-minute combat. I could play a 45-minute combat. I can even play an hour-long combat if it's fun, if it's cool.
Yeah, if it's fun.
But 2 hours, 3 hours, that's tough. That's tough. That's a long time. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining Evan. Remember to check out the Kickstarter in 4 days, 3 days?
Tuesday. So whatever that is.
Tuesday, the 10th. So we'll be there, definitely supporting it. And we will see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody. Peace.
more.